All right, we're live. Welcome, folks. We're just getting started, a little late. VP debate. I am Brandon. You recognize me, I'm sure. I mean, we're live so often. Oh, Jesus! And now, hold on. I got some more buttons to click. Oh, Dr. Chicken's back. No, he's not. There he is. Yep. All right. How we looking, Dr. Chicken?
Yeah, that's better. I got hotel.
Uh-oh. All right, yeah, so let's hit up that VP debate. I think I can't wait to see this is going to be
Yeah, like I said, I got that hotel internet.
Okay. Do you want me to look up a link? I can grab it. What are your expectations of the evening?
My expectations of of the debate.
Yeah.
JD's going to look better than weird, and Tim Walz is going to look even more weird. It's going to be a weird debate.
That's exactly what it's just weird all the way around. Just like one dude kind of pedophile weird, the other one's kind of like just like missionary only kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like it's just like just weird.
Yeah.
It's one time that the corporate media gets something right.
It's gonna be weird.
It's just gonna be weird. All right, let me see if I can find a link here. Presidential debate. Yeah, we are late, man. All right, here we go. USA Today has it live. Oh no, live updates.
Oh yeah, they've already started the first question.
Yeah, it's CBS, I think. Here we go. I'll try it. Okay, nope. Come on now. Come on, Cletus.
I don't know whose internet's worse, mine or yours.
Yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes my computer just decides to lag. Okay, come on. Oh, shit.
Here, I'm thinking it's my crappy hotel internet, but
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm moving fine on the stream. Maybe I'll pull it up.
Okay.
That's good. Here, I'll just share mine.
All right. Yeah, because I can't find. I'm striking out here on links. Fuck you, Google. You suck.
That's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
All right. Tell me how we need to do on volume.
Do you
Higher.
respond to any of the allegations?
Well, look, Donald
Good.
Trump was in office. We'll sometimes hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership.
Why?
When Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops, and they received traumatic brain injuries. Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand.
Yeah, they did that because Trump killed their general, you fucking dumbass.
It makes sense to him.
Well,
steady
that's
leadership
a
like you
story
witnessed
that nobody
today,
knows
like you
about.
witnessed in April.
And that wasn't even
Those
that big of
Iranian
a
attacks were
a news
repelled.
story.
Our
I don't know why
coalition
you
is
used that
strong,
one.
and we need the steady leadership that
I
Kamala
forgot
Harris is
about that one.
providing.
Senator Vance,
Ridiculous.
the U.S. did have a diplomatic deal with Iran to temporarily pause parts of its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake?
Too late
for 1
after
minute?
today.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5
Perfect.
years? And the answer is your running mate.
Yep.
Great.
Yep. Okay. You send me that link.
Not mine.
There we go.
Donald Trump consistently made the world
Okay.
more secure. Now we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Walz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their proxies attack Israel? It was during the administration of Kamala Harris. So Governor Walz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last time, I'm 40 years old, when was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to.
I like
Margaret, thank you.
I like how all of a sudden it's
Let's
like
turn now to
Hamas
Hurricane
and their
Helene.
proxies,
The
because
storm
all of a
could
sudden
become one of the
Israel
Yeah.
deadliest on record.
just like
More than
expanded their war
160
100%,
people are dead
150%.
and hundreds more are missing. Scientists
Well,
say
I did
climate
love
change
how
makes these
neither of them
hurricanes
really argued on that
larger,
one. They're like, okay, yeah, we
stronger,
both want war.
and
Okay,
more
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
deadly because
both-
of the
we're both
historic
good with that.
rainfall.
Yeah.
Senator Vance, according to CBS
So like
News
Donald Trump
polling,
didn't have new
7
wars,
in 10
but now we have war,
Americans
and we're
and
both
more
okay
than
with protecting Israel.
60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate change. Senator, what responsibility would the Trump administration have to try and reduce the impact of climate change? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So
Climate
first of all,
change
let's
doesn't
start
cause
with the
stronger
hurricane,
storms, you're an
because it's
idiot.
an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today actually a photograph of 2 grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it
Yeah,
was
I
the
saw
last
that.
photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm
Oh,
sure Governor
shit.
Walz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible. And then, of course,
The federal
afterwards,
response didn't
to help
happen.
the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast. They need
So
their
he's
government
just
to do their
appealing
job.
to the
And I
heartstrings
commit
and saying
that when
government
Donald
needs to
Trump
do a
is
better
president
job.
again, the government will
Oh
put
my
the
God.
citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. Now, Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say, Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want
That's
to
my
do?
bingo card.
The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America, because we're the cleanest economy in the
What is
entire
it
world.
with them and like
What
pushing
have Kamala
energy
Harris's
policy? It's
policies
just
actually led to?
ridiculous.
More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire world. And when I say that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're doing per unit of economic output. So if we actually care about
This is a
getting
smart
cleaner
answer,
air and
really.
cleaner water, the
It's
best
good.
thing to do
He's
is
like,
to
a
double down
Republican's
and
not going
invest
to be
in
able to
American
do his
workers
stance
and the
on how
American
dumb
people. And
climate change
unfortunately,
is.
Kamala Harris has done
And
exactly the opposite.
And he's
Yeah,
just like, okay, well, just look
Governor
at their
Walz, you have 2
record
minutes
on
to
climate
respond.
Well,
change. Like, I'm not even going to argue about our
all those
climate
things are
change. You
happening.
guys suck
Look,
it.
First of all,
It's like,
it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane. And my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors. As we work together on these emergency managements,
Forget?
governors know no partisanship. They work
Did he
together
forget?
because all of the governors.
It
have
was
the
like
emergency
he had that
responders on
weird
the ground.
pause. Okay, I'm
Those
not the only
happen
one
on
that
the
noticed
front
that. I was
end.
like,
The federal
Co-chair.
government
Like,
comes
did he have
in
a
to make sure
Biden
they're there
moment?
so that we recover, but we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that
he's
they're
like, oh shit, I
staying there,
can't make up
staying
a
focused.
position. What was
Now,
I?
look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's
I
no
wasn't the
doubt this
coach.
thing
What was
forward
I?
on
Co-chair.
faster and stronger
Assistant
than anything
coach.
we've seen.
Shit.
Senator
Fair.
Vance has said that there's a climate problem in the past. Donald Trump called it a hoax and then joked that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in.
Like, but
What
like
we've seen
Obama
out of the
bought, yeah.
Harris administration now, the
We're
Biden
so worried about it.
administration, is we've seen
He bought a house, a
seen
mansion
massive
on an island.
investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in
Ridiculous.
the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country. 2,000 in
Bullshit.
Jeffersonville, Ohio,
Lie.
taking
Lie.
the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to
Maybe
come
that's
to
a
me.
bad
Look,
place
I
to
harvest
farm.
corn, I harvest soybeans, and I harvest wind. We are
It's
producing
amazing how
more natural
climate change
gas and
causes
more oil
floods
at any time than we ever have.
and
We're
droughts.
also producing
Amazing.
more
It's just
clean
like you can
energy.
blame it for everything.
So the solution for us is to
Whatever.
continue to move forward, that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country. That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future, not just the current.
What
And that's what
energy?
absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about
The
how do we
solar and
mitigate
wind
these
energy
disasters?
costs more to
Thank
create
you.
and to
Senator, I want to give you
maintain
an
than it
opportunity
does
to respond
give
there. The
back.
governor
Wind
mentioned that
energy's awful.
President Trump has called
Worst.
climate change
Wind
a
energy
hoax.
is
Do you
terrible.
agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats will use here. I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you
He's
really
way
want to
better at
make
that.
the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more
When
energy
he gets
production.
interrupted.
We haven't built a nuclear
Slight
facility, I
agreement,
think, one
but
in the
overall, my
past
point's
40
still
years.
valid. Shut up,
Natural
Tim.
gas, we've
Like-
got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing
Senator,
worse by
your
the
time
climate.
is up. Governor,
Jab you
would you
with
like to respond?
Tim.
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil, but the folks know, and like I said again, these
Sure
are
about
not
that?
liberal folks. These are not folks that are Green New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our number one export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this. And what Kamala Harris has been able to do in Minnesota, we're starting to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law that was passed allows us to think about mitigation in the future. How do we make sure that we're protecting by burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to
It's a vice
Mar-a-Lago,
presidential
say,
debate.
give me money for my campaign and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that. And an all above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus
Okay,
among
he said something
scientists is
about
that the Earth's
exporting
climate is
topsoil
warming at an
because of
unprecedented rate. Margaret?
runoff or
Thank you,
like
Laura. We're
yeah
going to
from
turn
the
now
rain
to
runoff.
immigration.
I
The
don't think
crisis
that's
at
a
the
thing.
U.S.-Mexico border consistently
How are you supposed to
ranks as
stop
one of
that?
the top issues
Like-
for American voters. Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history and to use the U.S. military to do so.
I wonder if
Could
he
you be
knows
more
what topsoil
specific
is.
about
Like,
exactly how this will work? For example, would you deport parents who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil.
Oh, you mean like the
You have 2
Biden?
minutes.
So
and
first of all, Margaret,
Obama?
before we talk about deportations, we have to
Administration.
stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris
Redirect.
started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 20, 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally.
I was like, okay,
I think you start with
Caymans are
deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
She's not doing that.
Governor, do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children?
The drug mule is not true, but I will say,
I'll talk about the drug.
Because this is
She is letting them in, but I'll talk about the
crisis.
drug
And the good news on this
Let's talk
is
about
the
something
last
else.
12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do. But let's go back to this on immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney
Well, when you
General
kill all
of
the
the
drug
largest
users,
state, a border state in California.
like-
She's the only person in this race
It's got to
who
come down
prosecuted
sometime.
transnational gangs for human trafficking and drug interventions. But look, we all want to solve this. Most of us want to solve this. And that is the United States Congress. That's the Border Patrol agents. That's the Chamber of Commerce. That's most Americans out here. That's why we had the fairest and the toughest bill on immigration that this nation's
Is that the
seen.
one that would
It
let
was
5,000
crafted
people in
by
a day?
a conservative senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. I know him. He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The
Yeah.
Border Patrol said this is
3.5
what we need in here.
years.
These are the experts.
After you
And the
should have
Chamber
done
of
it.
Commerce and the Wall Street
Like
Journal
an
said,
idiot.
pass this thing. Kamala Harris helped get there. 1,500 new border agents. Detection for drugs.
It's
Would
like,
it take
money
would it
to
take
speed
6
up.
months to a year
It's
to
like
get
getting-
these
the
out there?
adjudications
6
on
months
this.
to a
Just
year.
wanna know
yeah, it's
what
like
you
getting
want.
mad at
But as soon
Kraft
as I was getting
macaroni
ready
and
to
cheese
pass
for
and actually
making you
tackle
fat
this,
after
Donald
3.5
Trump said
years,
no.
and you'd be
told
like,
them to
why
vote
the
against
fuck
it
didn't you have me
because
diet
it gives him a
too? Like,
campaign issue. It
This
gives him a,
donut
what
diet
would
is
Donald
bullshit.
Trump talk about if we actually did some of these things? And they need to be done by the legislature. You can't just do this through the executive branch. So look, we have the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do
and
this.
so did
And he
Kamala.
promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build you a big, beautiful wall, and Mexico will pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built, and Mexico didn't pay a dime. But here we are
Oh,
again,
yeah, let's
9
talk about
years
why it
after he
didn't get
came down
built
that
there, Tim.
escalator,
Mhm.
dehumanizing people
Maybe
and telling them
Democrats?
what he was going to do. As far
Maybe?
as the deportation
Oh,
plan,
did you
at
see
one
JD's
point,
look? He's
Senator
got
Vance
something to
said
say.
it was so
I'm
unworkable to be
curious now.
laughable.
Are they
So
going to give
that's
a
where we're
response?
at.
Though?
Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor,
Bullshit.
your time is up. Senator, the question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens? You have 1 minute.
Margaret, my point is that we already have massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And we know that they use children as drug
He just
mules.
he just
It
said,
was a
did you see
disgrace.
that?
Yeah,
And it
he's
has to
yeah,
stop.
He's like,
okay.
yeah, actually, yeah,
What
that's
you
actually
said just
correct.
doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years,
He's like, thanks for
Kamala
fact checking
Harris went
yourself.
out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy. She did exactly that. We had a record number of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president, or a few months before, she says that somehow she got religion and cared a lot about a piece of legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is leading to massive problems in the United States of America. Parents who can't afford health care, schools that are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, what about
Yeah,
our CBS News polling, which does show that a majority of Americans, more than 50%, support mass deportations?
Look, we fix this issue with a bill that is necessary, but the issue on this is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this. And Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this.
What?
That vilified a large number of people who were here legally.
They're eating the dogs is coming up.
The Republican governor said, it's not true. Don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue. And the consequences in Springfield were the governor had to send state law enforcement to escort kindergartners to school. I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other human beings.
Tim,
Governor, your time is up. Senator, I'll give you 1 minute, but let me just ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker,
I think he can hear you, bitch. Let him respond.
And funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to implement? You have 1 minute.
Look, Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our border czar, Kamala Harris, has been. And it's actually
border czar's on my card too.
Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say, if you try to come across the border illegally, you've got to stay in Mexico. You've got to go back through proper channels.
I'm voting Phil.
Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and is very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you.
The problem Vance has here is that town
I don't think that Kamala Harris
talking about
Senator,
was
your
a
time is
fucking
up.
dying
Governor, you
town.
have 1 minute to respond.
That's why they took all these immigrants
It is law
in,
enforcement that asked
and they
for the
didn't
bill.
understand the
They helped
repercussions
craft
of
it.
it, and
They're
now
the
they're
ones that
regretting
supported
it.
it. Was
So,
that's because they
like
know
I
we
get
need to
it,
do this.
but the town
Look,
was a
this
shithole
issue
and
of
dying
continuing
already,
to bring this up, of
and
not dealing
they
with
took
it,
the wrong
of
actions to
blaming
fix it.
migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators buying up housing and making them less affordable, but it becomes a blame. Look, this bill also gives the money necessary to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7 years for an asylum claim to be done.
Housing vouchers.
This bill gets it done in 90 days. Then you start to make a difference in this,
That
and you
creates a
start to
shortage
adhere
there,
to what
Tim.
we know, American principles. Look, I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about to the
he's
least
trying to
amongst
do
us you
the
do unto
Christian
me.
thing.
I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it. This
That was
bill
definitely
does it.
practiced.
It's funded. It's supported by the people who do it, and it lets us keep our dignity about how
Yeah,
we
Stephen,
treat
you're
other
right.
people.
He's trying
Thank you,
to.
Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well,
Nora?
Margaret, but
Thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's
Nora.
important
We're
because
gonna turn now to the
debate-
economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that
The
you guys weren't
economy,
going to
we're-
fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say
Nice.
what's actually going on.
Beautiful. Good
So
job.
there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That
Thank
is
you,
the
Senator.
facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
Yes, even
describing
like,
the legal
They're like,
process.
stop-
We will
I
have
swear
to
to God-
criticizing
vote
Kamala
yes,
Harris.
Senator.
I swear to
Thank
God, the
you so
parties
much.
have like swap places. Like
Thank you,
the
gentlemen.
Democrats and
Well,
We
Republicans.
want to have,
One app has not been on the books.
Crazy.
Something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
gentlemen,
They
the
muted him.
audience can't hear you because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process. Nora?
Thank you, Margaret. The economy is a top concern for voters. Each of your campaigns
it's like
has
the number
released
one
an
Can we
thing.
talk
economic
about
plan. So
World
let's
War
talk about
III?
the
Because that's what
specifics.
everybody's worried
Governor
about today.
Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will
You're not going to
increase
have a
the
child to
nation's
have a
deficit
tax credit
by
for because he's probably going to get
$1.2
drafted
trillion.
in, you know, a couple
How
years.
would you
Like,
pay for that without
think you're more worried
ballooning the
about
deficit?
that.
Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And
Credits are
Kamala
useless.
Harris and I do believe in the middle
tax
class because
credits are
that's where we
useless.
come from. We both grew up in that. We understand. So those of you out there listening tonight, you're hearing a lot of stuff back and forth, and it's good. It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen. You should be listening. How's this going to impact me? The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure that the things you buy every day, whether they be prescription drugs or other things, that there's fairness in that. Look, the $35 insulin is a good thing, but it costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect.
That should sound sexy
As far as
now.
the housing goes, I've seen it in
Yep.
Minnesota.
Much better.
12% more houses in Minneapolis. Prices went down on rent 4%. It's working.
John,
And
I'm
then
about to
making
have
sure
more
tax
kids
cuts
for a
go to the
bigger
middle
credit.
class. $6,000 child tax credit. We have one in Minnesota.
Hey, that's okay. Like, I'm
reduces,
for that. If
childhood
you know what, a
poverty by a third. We
$3,000
save money in the
child
long
tax
run,
credit
and we
brings
do
the
right thing for
the
families.
the
And then
rate
getting
of
businesses off the
new
ground. The law as it
childbirth
stands
back
right now is
above the
$5,000
replacement
tax
level,
credit for small
then we
business,
don't have to
increasing
have
that to
immigration
$50,000.
as
Now,
much,
this is a
and we can just take
philosophical
care of
difference between
ourselves
us.
and build a
Donald
good
Trump
economy.
made a
with,
promise, and I'll give you
you
this.
know,
He
who
kept
we
it.
have.
He took
The
money
reason
from
that's the only
Mar-a-Lago,
reason
give you a rich
immigration
tell
is
him, give you a tax
necessary
cut.
right
He
now
gave
is
the
because we have a
tax cuts that
negative
predominantly
child
went to the top
replacement
class.
rate, and your
What happened
economy is
there
going to
was
fail
an
after the
$8
boomers
trillion
die.
increase in the national debt, the largest
I mean,
ever.
how are we going to have
Now
Hunger
he's
Games if we don't have
proposing
children?
a
I
20%
know, right?
consumption or sales tax on everything
I
we
need
bring
my
in.
kids to kill your
Everyone
kids
agrees,
and your
including
kids to
businesses,
kill
it
my
would be
kids.
destabilizing it. It would
We need
increase
kids to
inflation,
bomb
could
each other in the
potentially
future.
lead
That's
to
what
a
this is
recession.
about, people.
Look, this
This
is
is it.
simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do. We'll just
Yeah,
ask
John.
the wealthiest
More
to pay their
kids.
fair
Bump 'em
share.
out.
When you
Heather's
do
on
that,
board. I know
our
it.
system works best. More people are
Go, Heather.
participating in it, and folks have the things that they need.
Senator, I want to give you a moment to respond on that. But similarly, the Wharton School has done an analysis.
I
of
hate
the
that. They're
current
like, go ahead and
plan
respond on that, but
and
I'm
says
also going
it
to
would
reframe the
increase
whole
the
fucking
nation's
question.
Yeah, I'm going
deficit
to ask a
by
different question
$5.8 trillion.
and bring
My
up a
question
whole
is
different.
And then only
simple
give you
for
1 minute.
How do you pay
Yeah.
for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Oh,
Well,
two.
first of all,
How
you're going to
generous.
hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer. A lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do, and some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies. And what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%. Open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris has
be
such
fair, that
great
was a lot
plans
the Fed.
for how to address
Just saying.
middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now.
Not
when
really,
asking for
Kamala,
promotion, but in the
per se.
job the American people gave her 3.5 years ago. And the fact that she isn't tells you a lot about how much you can trust her actual plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom, because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5%.
Yeah, that's kind of what I
inflation,
was
and
thinking
boot,
too, Bandit.
peace and security
Yep.
all over
He
the
kind of
world.
does
So
that,
when people
realizes
say
there's
that
a
Donald
problem.
Trump's economic
We're not
plan doesn't make
perfect,
sense,
but
I
Kamala is
say
supposed to
look
be
at
the one that
record. He
answers this, and she
delivered
does a
rising
terrible job. So
take-home pay for
obviously their
American workers.
solutions suck.
Now,
Like that's
Tim
how all of it
admirably
is
admits
so
that they
far.
want to undo the Trump tax cuts.
Tim's
But
gonna
if you
try to
look at what
defend
was so
and
different about
move
Donald
to
Trump's tax
the
cuts, even
forward
from
plan.
previous
Like
Republican
he
He's
tax
trying to
plans,
put
is
Tim
that a
on
lot of
defense
those
and
resources
see if
went
he can.
to giving more take-home pay to
well,
middle class
that's
and
what he has
working
to
class Americans. It was passed in 2017, and you saw an American economic boom unlike we've seen in
Too
a
bad Tim
generation in
can't
this
wear
country.
earrings like
That is a
Kamala.
record we're proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills. It's going to stop when Donald Trump brings back common sense to this country.
What? I don't have to
Governor,
pay
do you wanna
bills
respond to
anymore?
that? What has Kamala
Yeah.
Harris done for the middle class?
Yeah, well, Kamala Harris's day
That'll be
one was
Arctic,
Donald Trump's failure on
article in the
COVID that
Atlantic
led to the
tomorrow.
collapse of our
JD
economy. We were
Vance says
already
if Trump's
before
elected,
COVID
you
in a-
don't have
in a
to pay
manufacturing
bills.
recession. 10 million
Fact
people out of
check,
work, up
mostly
4% since the Great
untrue.
Depression.
Mostly,
9
kind
million
of,
jobs
but not
closed from
really.
That was day
That
one.
little
Whether it was
gauge.
the Infrastructure
He's
Act
the
or other
red.
things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted.
True.
Look, if you're
Accurate.
going to be president,
Yeah,
you
Tim's
don't have
Tim's
all the
spitting
answers.
some
Donald
truth
Trump
right here.
Tim's
thinks he does.
spitting.
My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump.
If he can get
And the
in.
same thing goes with
Yeah,
this.
no
And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, or whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years?
Because
He'll have
Congress
two presidents.
passes the
That's what's
laws
wrong
that
with the
let
system.
him
There's a
escape
way around it. and
paying
he's not
taxes.
bragged about that.
Jack off.
We're just asking for fairness in it, and that's all you want.
You have a minute.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial
that's
base
true,
off
actually.
to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America
They're wrong
less
about COVID.
self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off.
He doesn't
and
want
they
to go
were
there.
wrong about it. And for the
He's
first time in a generation,
They're
Donald
wrong about the
Trump
Federal
had the
Reserve.
wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy. We're going to make more of our own stuff. And this isn't just an economic issue. I mean, I've got 3 beautiful little kids at home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the
Aw.
pharmaceuticals
God,
that
I
we put in the
fucking
bodies
hate
of our
that appeal
children
to
are
family shit.
manufactured
Just
by
like the
nations that
appeal to
hate us.
religion
This
shit. Like,
has
fuck off.
to stop.
Nobody
And we're not
really
gonna
cares
stop it
about
by
that.
listening to
You get
experts.
one
We're gonna
boomer
stop
vote
it
every
by
time you
listening
do
to
that.
common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on.
Senator, your
Well,
time is up. Governor Walz, can you address that? I mean, voters say they trust Donald Trump on the economy more. Why?
Well, if you're listening tonight and you want billionaires to get tax cuts, you heard what the numbers were.
No, Bandit, you were right the
look,
first time. You
I'm
were
the union guy
agade.
on this.
Yeah,
I'm not the guy
agade
who
more
wanted to
than
ship
us.
things overseas, but I understand that.
Like
Look,
the Dukes of
we
Hazzard.
produce soybeans and corn. We need to have fair trading partners. That's something that we believe in. I think the thing that most concerns me on this is Donald Trump was the guy who created the largest trade deficit in American history with China. So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this. I watched it happen too. I watched it to my communities, and we talked about that. But we had
What?
people undercutting the right to collectively bargain. We had right to work states made it more difficult. We had companies that were willing to ship
Making
it
this
over,
a union
and we saw
thing.
people profit. Folks that are
You saw
venture
people
capital in
profit?
some cases, put into companies that were overseas. We're in
What?
agreement that
He's
we
like,
bring those home. The
capitalism's
issue is Donald
bad.
Trump is talking about
That's
it.
his
Kamala
response.
Harris has a record, 250,000 more
Dirty
manufacturing
pirate
jobs
hookers.
just out of the IRA.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
So appreciate that. So if you notice what Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics
No, that's a
show
gross
that he
generalization.
did. So what Tim
That's
Walz
an
is
accurate
doing, and
generalization.
honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris'
that was just shit luck on
atrocious
that one
economic record, which
Yeah.
has made
Wow,
gas,
that was
groceries,
crushing right
housing
there.
unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in
JD
our
Vance is
household.
good.
I
I knew he
know
was
what
going to
it's
be
like
pretty good at
to
this,
not
but
be able to
that
afford
was
the
that
things
was
that you need to
masterclass
afford.
right there.
We can do so much better. To all of you watching, we can get back to an America that's affordable again. We just got to get back to common sense economic principles.
I hope we have a conversation on healthcare then.
Senator, Governor,
Please.
thank you.
Man,
Margaret?
please, let's do
We'd
it.
like to get to ahead, gentlemen. on
I love
many
how he tries
topics,
to
but
queue
right
up
now I
the,
want to
Hey,
talk about
hey guys,
personal
I have some winning
qualifications
arguments on
of
healthcare.
the
Make sure you
President
bring that up
and
later so I don't look like an asshole at
the
the end of this
president
thing.
hears before making consequential decisions.
Imagine
We
if
wanna
Donald
ask
Trump
you
did
about
that.
your
Jesus
leadership
fucking
qualities.
Christ, they'd lose their
Governor
fucking
Walz,
mind.
He's trying to
you said you were in
dictate the
Hong Kong
debate.
during the
Yeah.
deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989.
Yes,
But
he lied
Minnesota
about that.
Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that
Correct.
year.
That was in a Nebraska newspaper.
Can you explain that discrepancy? You have 2
Yeah,
minutes.
well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska.
Okay,
town
nothing
of
to do with it.
400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National
That's
Guard
not a
at 17,
service.
Not a service.
on family
dumbass.
farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity
Glad you
in the
were
summer
no
of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we
He's
would go
doing-
back
he's
and forth to
dancing around
China.
that shit.
The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look,
They know I
will
didn't
be the
go to
first tell
China
you, I
on
poured
the
my
day
heart
they
and my
did
community.
Tiananmen Square. I
tried
wasn't
to
there.
do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a
I was like
knucklehead
right
at
next to the
times,
guy
but
with
it's
the
always
tank,
been about
like
that.
right next to him.
Those same people
That's his excuse. I'm a
elected me to
knucklehead
Congress
at times.
for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people working on things like farm bills that we got done.
So
working
he
on veterans
doesn't
benefits.
admit,
And then the people
but he
of
doesn't
Minnesota
deny.
were able to
Beautiful. This is
elect me to
actually a good
governor
answer.
twice. So look, my
doing
commitment
his
has
best.
been from the beginning to make sure that I'm there for the people, to make sure that I get this
JD's
right. I
smiling.
will
He's like,
say
that
more than
sly
anything,
little
many
snaky
times
shit.
I will talk a lot. I will get caught up in the rhetoric.
You should just say, is he
but
gonna
Oh,
answer?
I'll make up
there,
lies.
The impact
Yeah.
it made, the difference
Is he
it
gonna
made in
answer
my
the
life.
question
I
or
learned a
not?
lot
That's all
about
you should
China.
say.
I hear the
You gonna
critiques
answer
of
Yeah,
that
I
it.
just said I just got
Today
caught up in the
that Donald
rhetoric. You
Trump
know,
has
I
come
might
to
lie
trip
about
with
some
us.
shit. I was a
I
head. No,
guarantee
I
he
I
wouldn't
wasn't
be,
a head coach.
praising Xi Jinping.
I was
about
this
COVID,
rank in the military.
but I
No,
guarantee
actually, I
you he wouldn't
wasn't.
start
I
a
was at
trade war
Tiananmen
that
Square.
he
No,
ends up losing.
actually,
So
I
this is
wasn't.
about
I just
trying
get
to
caught up in the
understand
rhetoric,
the world.
guys.
It's about trying to do the best you can for your community. And then it's putting yourself out there and letting your folks understand what it is. My commitment, whether it be through
I'm
teaching,
driving
which
the
I was
tank.
good at,
Tim
or
Walz
whether it was
probably.
being a good soldier or was being a good member of Congress, those are the things that I think are the values that people care about.
Governor, just to
No,
follow
people
up on
care
that,
if you
the
lie.
question was, can you explain the
No, just-
discrepancy?
Damn, they're really going after him.
This is
Summer
good.
And misspoke
Yeah.
on this. So
I
will-
misspoke.
That's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
But he wasn't there.
Thank you, Governor.
Yeah.
Senator
I'm a
Vance,
liar.
in
I got caught.
2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he
No,
could
I
be
knew this was
America's
coming
Hitler.
too.
I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism. You're now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with his. If you become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear?
He knows
You
this
have 2
question's
minutes.
coming. He should
Well,
nail
first of all,
this.
Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get
Secure-ish.
something wrong
would
and you
say
change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons,
You
Margaret,
don't remember these
I've done so
caravans?
many interviews is because I think it's
Am
important
I the
to
only one
actually
that remembers
explain to
this
the
shit?
American people where I come down on the issues and what changed. Now, you pointed out the messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we
You should have
could have
just
done
said,
better
you
in
know,
the
I was
Trump
really fat
administration in
back
the
then.
first round if Congress was doing its job.
I like
I strongly
donuts.
believe, and I've been a United States senator, that
Eh,
Congress is not just a high class.
You know, I had a thing with a couch.
Forum for senators
There's
and
this
congressmen
donut
to
shop.
whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look, the one thing, and you're not probably surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe Biden did is he continued some of the Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs.
Well,
And
Waltz
it's the
looks like
one
Wilford
issue, the
Brimley
most
if he drove a
pro-worker part of the
windowless
Biden
van.
administration. It's
Free-
the one issue
free
where Kamala
candy,
Harris
chicks.
has run away from Joe Biden's
Diabetes.
record.
I
Think
got
about this. If
diabetes.
you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says, you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up. Nora?
Thank you. Now to the issue of reproductive rights. Governor Walz,
Uh-oh.
after
Thanks.
Roe versus Wade was overturned, you signed a bill into law that made Minnesota one of the least restrictive states in the nation when it comes to abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's
Why
not
did
what
they
the bill
ask a
says,
yes
but
or
look,
no? They're
this-
not going to get
this
that.
issue is what
They're like, yes or
on
no?
everyone's mind.
You get 2
Donald
minutes.
Trump put
Like,
this all into motion.
yes.
Wait, he didn't say
Yes.
no,
was
though.
That he
He didn't
put
say
the
no.
judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade. 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall,
she's still
a
alive then?
12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather. Those are horrific. Now,
Did
when
anybody
got
shoot
asked
the
about
stepdad?
that, Senator Vance said two wrongs
It's
don't
like
make a
less
right.
than
There is no
1%
right
of fucking
in
abortions.
this.
Dumbass.
So in
let's move on.
Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade.
But they're in the
We made
parking
sure
lots
that we
bleeding
put
out, Brandon.
women in charge of their health care. But look,
All of them.
this
There's
is
women
not like if you
everywhere
don't
bleeding out
know,
in parking
Amanda,
lots.
So
or
ridiculous.
Hadley, you soon will. Their Project 2025 is
come on.
going to have a registry
Coming.
of
It's coming.
pregnancies. It's going to make
Oh.
it more difficult, if not impossible, to get contraception and limit access, if not eliminate
That's
access
ridiculous.
to fertility treatments. For so many of you out there listening, me included, infertility treatments are why I have a child. That's nobody else's business, but those things are being proposed. And the catch-all on this is, well, the states will decide what's right for Texas might not be right for Washington. That's not how this works. This is
Yeah,
basic human rights.
exactly how it
We have
works.
seen maternal mortality skyrocket in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about healthcare. In Minnesota,
Sorry,
we are
forgot
ranked
I ordered
first in
DoorDash. I had to
healthcare
go
for a
grab it.
reason. We trust women, we trust doctors.
Senator, do you want to respond to the governor's claim? Will you create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
Hell yeah.
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it. And I know a lot
Oh,
of
bullshit.
Americans
You
don't
want big
agree,
government?
with
Yeah.
everything that I've ever said on this topic. And
You're
you
a
know, I
Republican
grew up
that
in a
says I want
working-class
small
family in a
government. That means you're going to
neighborhood
create a
where I knew
new
lot of young
fucking
women who
bureaucracy
had
agency.
unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate
Space Force times 2.
because they feel like they didn't have any other options. And you know, I one of them is actually very dear to me, and I know she's watching tonight. And I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I
Hell
are
yeah.
endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments. I want us to make it easier for moms to afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families
Did
to
that go
afford
the way you
homes so they
wanted
can
to go
afford a
there, Tim?
place to raise that family.
Did it?
And I think there's so much that we can do on the public policy front just to give women more options. Now, of course, Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what
Tim Walz
makes
is like,
the most
no,
sense
I don't
in a
want
very
voters to
big,
decide.
diverse,
I'm a
and let's be
Democrat. We
honest,
don't do that.
sometimes
We
a
want the
very
government to
politically
decide.
divided
You
country.
don't believe in
Governor,
democracy,
would
you
like to
son of a
respond and
bitch.
also answer the question
Yeah.
about restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked, and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you
No, he
about
said
this
you.
idea that there's diverse states.
He didn't
There's
say
a young woman
Minnesota. He
named
said
Amber
you.
Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive
Stop telling
state.
stories.
Because of that, she had to travel a
You're a
long
liar.
distance to North Carolina
Oh my God, I
to
had to
try and get
travel.
her care.
My God.
Amber
I had to
Thurman's
travel somewhere to murder
that
my child.
journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography?
It's
There's
not
a
like they're
very
telling you you
real
can't take a
chance
shit in
Had
Georgia.
Amber
All right,
Thurman
this is
lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today. That's why the restoration of Roe versus Wade. When you listen to Vice President Harris
Roe v.
talk
Wade
about this
was
subject,
stupid.
and you hear me talk about
Like,
it, you hear us talk
there
about
is a
exactly the
middle
same.
ground on some
Donald
of
Trump
this.
is trying to
It's
figure out how to
abortion's
get
not in the
political right of
Constitution.
this.
It is not a
He's
federal
liable
purview.
to
There's
ban
no
all this,
standing
but
for the
what
federal.
There's no
his
health
running
care
mate, though,
right.
does not, and
Yeah.
that's the problem.
None.
Governor, your
None.
time is up. Senator, let me ask you about that. He mentioned, it was, I think, referring to a national ban. In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My
Based.
question is, why have you changed your
Look
position?
at him. He's like, did I say that?
Laura, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did during when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
Governor, your response.
I'm going to
that was-
respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're
What kind of
not.
response was that?
We're
I don't know.
pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the
That's
implications
the
are
same
to
thing.
not be that.
Yeah.
Women having
You have to be
miscarriages,
comfortable with that.
women not
It's like the
getting
gun
their
rights thing. Like
physicians
if you want to
feeling
be
like they may
a
prosecuted for
Second
providing
Amendment
that care.
absolutist, you have to
And as
understand that
far as
people are going
making
to
sure
die
that we're educating our children
unnecessarily.
and giving them
That's
options,
the price of freedom.
Minnesota's a
That's the
state
same
with one
thing
of
with the
lowest teen
abortion
pregnancy
stance. If
rates.
you were going to
We
say
understand
that you
too.
want to
We
be
know that the
pro-women and
options need to be
pro-freedom of
available, and
body
we make
choice,
that
blah,
true.
blah,
We
blah,
also make
you
it
got to
we're a
go.
top
Yeah,
blue
and
state
some fucking
for the
babies are
best
going to
place to
die.
raise children.
You have to
But
put
these two
those two
things
together.
To try and say
I'm
that
comfortable
we're
being
pro-children,
pro-Second
but we
Amendment,
don't
saying,
like
yeah,
this, or you guys
some
are
people are going to get
pro-abortion.
shot
That's not the case at
unnecessarily because
all.
bad guys get
We are
guns.
pro-freedom
But
for
if you want
women
to be
make their choices,
pro-abortion,
and
you
we're
have to be
going,
able to
and
say
Kamala Harris is
babies are
making
going
the
to
case
die
to make
that shouldn't
options for
die.
children more affordable. A
You have to be
$6,000
comfortable with
child
that.
tax credit,
Otherwise,
but
you
we're
have
not
no
gonna base
principle
that
in
on
this
the backs
matter.
of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get
And to be
health care.
clear, I'm not
Senator?
May I
pro-abortion.
respond to that? First of all, Governor,
Not
I
at all.
agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive. There are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me. But as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives,
Doesn't
the
finish.
doctor
You're
is
already
under
saying
no
that.
obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think,
That's
whether
not
you're
true.
pro-choice or
That's not how the law
pro-abortion,
is.
that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's
was
always
good.
something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at
What
all.
was I
No,
wrong
no,
about,
he's
Governor?
making a
Please
point.
tell
He
me,
made a
what
good
was I
point.
wrong
He
about?
was
That's not the way the
asking
law is
if-
written.
He was
Look,
literally
but
asking.
How?
I've given this advice on a lot of things that getting involved, getting against, that's been misread and it was fact checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own
I thought that
business
nun
on
example
this.
was really
Things
good.
worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place.
I don't even like
When we do
Catholics.
a restoration of Roe,
Well,
that
not
was best. That
Catholics.
doesn't
I don't like
preclude us
Catholicism. I don't like
from
the church.
increasing
Catholics, you guys are
funding for
usually
children.
okay.
It doesn't increase
Some
us
of you.
from making sure that once that child's born, like in Minnesota, they get meals, they get early childhood education, they get health care. So the hiding behind we're going to do all these other things when you're not proposing them in your budget. Kamala Harris is proposing them. She's proposing all those things to make life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says. So they fact checked it with President Trump.
Gentlemen, there's a lot to discuss. We have to move on, and we're going to be right back with much
He
more
won
of the
that.
CBS News vice presidential
far.
debate. Just a moment.
No, I better get the damn commercials. This fucking volume changed here.
Oh, I was
All
gonna say,
right. So thoughts so far?
It's definitely better than the it's more substantive than the presidential debate.
I agree.
Like,
You're actually getting a lot of, like, if you actually care about issues and like details, this is way more informative. And it's not as entertaining, but like for junkies like us, this is actually, there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah, for sure. And I like, so Kamala did the same thing. Like, she was constantly looking at Trump when he was speaking. And
Yeah, but she was making the faces. And
no,
like,
no, but so
the
is Tim Walt.
hand and-
So is Tim Walt,
Hmm.
right? Tim.
Like she,
So
well,
Walt.
his emotional reaction sucks though.
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's the same type of thing. I'm not saying he's good at it. I'm just saying that he's doing the same thing that she was doing, where as JD's just like looking forward, and
No,
Tim,
JD's looking at him too, but he keeps doing this, like look back. He
occasionally,
looks back at the camera and kind of does an eye roll, but it's
Yeah.
not like a full on eye roll. But he keeps doing it. Like he looks back every time he hears something stupid. He's like, "Oh Jesus, fuck
Well-
Christ! Did he just go there?" Okay.
Well, but JD's like occasionally doing it, whereas Tim is like staring to the side of his head while he's talking and writing stuff down, which is fine. Like, honestly, I don't think writing stuff down is a bad thing. Like, I need notes to remind me sometimes of what I want to talk about. Otherwise, I'll lose it. Forget it. It's gone. Like, because we move on to another subject. Like, so I
Sure.
get that, but like he's like looking at the side of his head constantly. It's like, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. Like, you should be looking at the camera. Like, I don't know. It's but yeah, he definitely doesn't have the he doesn't have the expressions that Kamala had.
Yeah, I think JD's winning on like the visual aspect of it. He looks more confident. He looks. I mean, neither of them are ever going to give you like full-fledged fucking answers on any of these things. You know, they're all politician liars. So then it's like, okay, like you got to go on some subjective things. But I think objectively, but the posture, the body language, JD looks way more confident. And I think there was 2 times that JD had Waltz kind of cornered to give him like the line about the Tiananmen Square thing. Like Waltz looked fucking stupid in that. That was bad. And
He
then the other
definitely-
one was
He didn't look good.
he turned the abortion thing on him. The winning thing on the Democratic side, he turned abortion back onto Waltz, and I thought he made a great point on that whole fucking nun thing. Like, you gonna make a nun perform an abortion? Like, you need to defend your goddamn policies in Minnesota, and he couldn't, and he did a shitty job trying to answer that question. I think those two for me were the two biggest ones that showed that Waltz really isn't that prepared. He should have known those were coming, and both of them were supposed to be winning topics for him, really, at the end of the day. And he got it. You didn't know you were going to get challenged on your lying about Tiananmen Square or one of the many things that are all over in the fucking news. They've been hiding you in a closet like Biden for fucking 3 months. And you had no time to prepare a legitimate. He could have just said, "Hey, yeah, like I did say that. I wasn't there. And he kind of did that. He goes, well, sometimes you get caught up in the all he got to, I was shooting the shit, and I got a little loose with some words, and I should have apologized right away. I was young, I was stupid, but no, I wasn't in Tiananmen Square, but I was in China during this revolution. I did see some things, and he could have easily owned that, and most people will be okay with that and understand it. Own it. Just fucking own it sometimes.
So I agree with you.
We
And then
wanna turn now to
Steven said
America's
Vance
gun
sounds like a
violence
robot and
epidemic.
invaded
The
Seaport's.
leading cause
I
of death
don't
for
think he
children
did.
and
I'm gonna
teens in
disagree with you,
America
Steven. I don't
is
think
by
I don't think he
firearms.
evaded that.
Senator Vance,
I think he
you
answered it
oppose
quite
most
well.
gun legislation that Democrats claim would curb gun violence. You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including
Then
AR-15.
Bandit called it.
So let me ask
You're up
you,
next.
earlier this year,
Oh,
for the
he's
first
ahead of us.
time,
No,
two
he's
parents of a
ahead
school
of
shooter
us.
were
Remember?
convicted of
Oh, he's a
involuntary
gay of
manslaughter
us.
and sentenced to 10 years in
Okay.
prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass
Hey,
shootings? I'll
Len.
give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly
That's a
trust
good
local
question.
law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade.
Okay.
And like
Now
a lot
he's
of
gonna
parents, we send our
go
kids
on
to
this
school
tangent.
with such
Here's the
hope
deal. Like, I
and
am
such
worried
joy and
about
such
this
pride
blaming the
at their little
parents thing
faces
on the
first day of
guns.
school, and we know,
Uh,
unfortunately, that a
But
lot
God
of kids are
damn it,
experiencing
it's going to be a
terrible epidemic
slippery
of gun
slope.
violence. And of course, our hearts go
You're
out
going
to
to
the
have all
families that
kinds
are
of crazy
affected by
shit.
this
Where
terrible
does
stuff,
it stop?
and we
When
do
you
have
like
to do
then it's
better.
going to go to
And I
the
think that Governor
stores and the
Walz and I
gun
actually
and
probably
the
agree that we
the
need to do better
FFL.
on this. The question
Like,
is
it's just
how
going
do
to
we
keep going back
actually do
further
it?
and further.
Now, here's
If a
something that
parent
really bothers me and
is
worries me
dead
about
and they
this
get a
epidemic of
gun
violence.
that their parent
The
bought, but
gross
then they're going to be
majority,
like, well,
close
let's
to
go to the gun shop
90%
and
in some
fucking arrest
instances
them.
I've
Like,
seen
that's
of the
what's
gun
going to
violence in this
start
country
happening.
is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala
Same
Harris's
foreign
open
policy
border,
there, Len.
we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartels. So that number, the amount of illegal guns
I
in our
bet he can
country
lift
is
his
higher
hands higher
today
than
than it
McCain.
was 3.5 years ago.
I
But
don't
what
know.
do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect
You
our
s-
kids? And
you
I
see
think
him
the
grab his
answer
kid's
is, and
hand
I say this
on
not
stage.
loving
This was
the answer,
McCain. This is as
because
high
I
as
don't
he
want
would
my
go.
kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security.
Did you
But I
see that
unfortunately
Waltz
think
grab
that
his
we
kid's
have
hand
to
on
increase
stage
security in
Yeah.
our
in the
schools.
rally?
We have to
It
make
was
the
really
doors
aggressive.
lock better. We have to make the doors stronger.
We'll talk about
We've
that in a
got to
minute.
make the windows
That was
stronger.
bad
And of
camera
course, we've got
footage.
to increase school resource
He didn't do
officers,
anything wrong.
because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the
His
hands
mentally
of bad guys,
handicapped child was
it
about to
just
walk
doesn't
into
fit
a
with recent
monitor.
experience. So we've got to make our
Oh, really?
schools safer.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan
He looked like a dick
solutions
when he
for
did
how to
it,
do
but
that.
He did. He did look
Governor,
like
you
a
have 2
dick.
minutes.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress,
why was
I
your
sat
17-year-old boy
in my
playing
office
volleyball?
surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my
Are you a
7-year-old picture
volleyballist?
on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out. In Minnesota, we've
Kamala's a
enacted
hunter.
enhanced
Apparently,
red flag laws,
she ain't.
enhanced
No
background
fucking
checks.
way she is.
And
She
we
grew
can
up in
start
San
to get
Francisco.
data. But here's
Yeah,
the
she hunts
problem. If
nonviolent
we really want to
criminals.
solve
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
we've got folks that won't
She hunts
allow
people she can keep in
research to
jail.
be even done on gun violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, and I here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that work. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They don't have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your Second Amendment. And the idea to have some of these weapons out there, it just doesn't make any sense. Kamala Harris, as an attorney general,
It doesn't infringe,
worked on this
but I don't
issue.
think you should
She
have
knows
them.
that it's there. No one's trying to scaremonger and say we're taking your guns, but I ask all of you out there, do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort? Is that what we have to
I want
go?
you to
When we
homeschool.
know there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills. They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix. These are things that shouldn't be that difficult. You can still keep your firearms and we can make a difference. We have to. If you're listening tonight, this breaks your heart.
Senator.
Tim, first of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that he's
appreciate
doing
you saying
okay.
so.
Christ have mercy. It is awful, and I appreciate what Tim said actually about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly weird differences between our own country's gun violence
Said weird
problems
again.
and Finland. Is okay. First of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse or mental health. Substance abuse.
Yep.
We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the
True.
whole reason why
I still
we have
don't
such
like
a
it,
bad gun violence
but you
problem.
don't have to
But I
like
do think
it.
it's a big piece of it. Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible
Lynn
gun
says a couple
violence
security
problem
guards at
in a lot
schools
of our
and
big
locking
cities.
doors is hardly.
And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host
If you're
of
not
things that
going
we
to
can
like
do
be
here,
involved
but
in
I
your
do think
kids'
in our schools
education,
we've
and I
gotta
get
talk
it.
about
Like
more
sometimes
security.
it's just the way the
Senator, thank
economy
you.
is built.
Governor,
You have to put
previously
your kids in
opposed an
school,
assault
but you're giving them
weapons ban, but
fucking
then
free
only later
daycare,
in
and
your
you do
political
expect them to be
career
safe
did
while
you
you're
change
there.
your
So
position.
fucking make
Why?
it
And I
safe.
sat in that office with those San
So
Diego
like
parents. I've
you
become
don't
friends
have
with
to
school
like that it's
shooters. I've
Fort
seen it.
Knox.
Look, the
You could
NRA, I was
homeschool and quit
NRA
your
guy for
fucking
a long
job.
time. They used to teach gun
Like,
safety.
or you could
I'm of an
advocate
age
for
where
fucking,
my
you
shotgun
know,
was in my
free
car so I could
choice
pheasant hunt
fucking
after football practice.
education,
That's
so
not
you
what
could
we
get
live
paid by the
today.
government to
And
educate your own child
several
every
things I
year.
want to mention on
Like,
this is
there's
talking
options
about
out there
cities and
for
where
us,
it's at.
but nobody wants to take
The
those
number
options. They
one
just want to go with fucking
where the
daycare.
most
Basically,
firearm
it's free
deaths happen
daycare.
in
That's what
Minnesota
school
are rural
is.
suicides.
Yeah.
And you know what?
And we have
That
an
daycare might need to have
epidemic
fucking
of
metal
children
detectors
getting
and
guns
locked
and
fucking
shooting
doors because there's
themselves.
crazy people in
And
the
so
fucking world, and you're
we
too afraid to
have,
keep
and
them
we
at home,
should
and
look at all
you
the
have to have
nations,
2 incomes. That sucks.
making
Vote
sure
better.
folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health.
God, I just
because you
advocated
have a
for
mental health
voting.
issue doesn't mean you're violent. And I think what we end up doing is we start looking for a scapegoat. Sometimes it just is the
Sorry, I got
guns.
into a rant.
It's
You'll have
just
to
the
tell me what
guns.
that gaff
and
was.
there are things that you can do about it. But I do think that this is
We talk
one,
about
and I think this is a
stigmatizing
healthy
mental health.
conversation.
Like,
I
if
think
someone's
there's a
shooting up a
capacity to
school, they're
find
fucking
solutions on
mentally
this
deranged.
that
Like,
work,
there's no
protect
other
Second
way
Amendment,
around it.
protect our children. That's our priority.
Gentlemen, thank you. Margaret.
Thank you, Nora. Let's turn now to
Yeah,
the
you have
top
to tell me what the huge
contributor
gaffe
to
was.
inflation, the high cost of housing and rent. There's a shortage of more
Yeah,
than
what
4
was the
million
gas?
homes in the United States, and that contributes to the high housing prices. Governor Walz, the Harris campaign promises a $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
Dumbest thing.
and a
Walt said he became
$10,000
friends of
tax
school
credit.
shooters.
They also promise to build 3 million new homes. Where are you building these homes?
That's
and
great.
won't handing out that kind of money just drive up prices higher?
No, it's
Two
not
things.
handing out. We have, first, let me say this.
It's handing
This
out
issue of
25,000.
housing,
Yes, that's
and
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
it.
want to
handing
be
it out.
leaning on this. The problem we've had is
I get another
we've
beer.
got a lot of folks that see housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking
do
of
you live
Christmas
now?
services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the vice president is pushing forward and bringing a new way of approaching this is something we're doing in Minnesota from that lead. We in the state invested in making sure our housing was the biggest investment that we'd ever made in housing. It starts to make it easier. We cut some of the red tape. Local folks, look, we can't do it at the federal level, but local folks make it easier to build those homes. And then that down payment assistance. I can tell all of you out there, one of the, certainly for me, using the GI Bill was one thing, but a veteran's home loan, the big thing about a veteran's home loan is
VA
you
does a
don't
good
have to
job.
pay the down payment.
You don't have anything to
Those
do
are
with the
things that
VA
make
loan,
it
though.
now, look, you're going to pay it back and you're going to pay your mortgage. Those are things that we know in the long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates.
Hold on,
We've
you
seen a
don't need
12%
that much down
increase in
payment
stock because
assistance
we
for a
started
VA
putting some of
loan.
these
The
things
fuck
in,
are you talking
and we're
about?
You don't
implementing
need you don't
a
need
state
any
program to
down
make sure we
payment
give some of that down
for a
payment
VA
assistance.
loan.
We get it back from people because
They
here's
just
what we
charge
know.
you a fee.
People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to be able to
Every
get to
time
school.
and every time you
All of
use
those
your
things in
VA
the
loan,
long run
they charge
end
you a
up saving
larger
our
fee.
money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally
Who-
affordable housing.
Who's
but we
blaming
can make
only
sure that
immigrants?
the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Governor, your time is up. Senator Vance,
I don't know what
as
the
far as
fuck he
your
was talking
campaign's
about.
position,
Yeah, I don't know,
the
like,
promise is to
that makes
seize
sense.
federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices.
Federal government should own land.
Where are you going to build
Correct.
all the new homes you're promising, and what part of any
Federal
of this plan would
Owned
provide
land is owned by
immediate
the people.
relief? You have 2
Technically,
minutes.
should be.
Well, first of all,
There's
Tim
nothing in
just
the
said something
Constitution
that I
that
agree
says
with.
you
We don't
can
want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this
Pass the
country,
bill.
which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one
When
of
the
most
government's giving them
significant
huge
drivers
checks to
of
pay the
home
rent.
prices
Yes.
in the country. It's why we have
Pretty
massive
simple.
increases in home prices that have happened right
Certainly doesn't help.
alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable,
Go
I
right back
invite
to it.
her to use the office that the American people already gave her, not sit around and campaign and do nothing while Americans find the American dream of homeownership completely unaffordable. Now, you asked, Margaret, what would immediately change the equation for American citizens
I think
if you lower
J.D.
energy
Vance would have
prices? As
fucking
Donald Trump
destroyed
says, drill,
Kamala
baby,
Harris.
drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs, aside from illegal
She seems
immigration,
like a much.
This is
think
what
about it.
Trump should
The
have
truck
done to
driver's paying
Kamala.
40% more for diesel than the lumber he's delivering to the job site
Trump
to
can't
build a
help
house
himself.
is
There's
also
no
going
way
to
he can
become
do
a
this.
lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods too.
Senator Vance, you still have 23 seconds there. Do you want to answer
Can I have it?
where? Yeah. Governor, we will get to you in a moment. But Senator,
Oh.
where are you going to seize the federal lands? Can you clarify?
Well, what Donald Trump has said is we have a lot of federal lands that aren't being used for anything. They're not being used for a national park. They're not being used, and they could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Senator, your time is up. Governor, I do want to let you respond to the allegation that the vice president
He
is
sounds hideous.
letting in.
Well, of course, that's not
migrants,
true. And again,
that
you
it's
have the
affecting
facts. I
housing
guess we
prices.
agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's again,
That's a
blaming
fucking
and
lie.
trying to find a solution. I was going to ask
That's an outright lie.
and build
Like-
houses in the same federal land. And I think when people hear federal lands, these are really important pieces of land. Now, Minnesota doesn't. Have a
We
lot
don't
of
want the
federal land. I
government to
know
give
most
up their
people
land. These are
do.
important pieces of land.
There's
It's
not a
government
lot of
land.
federal land
Crossings are
in
down since
Minneapolis, for
the
example.
the
So
Biden
the
administration.
issue is I don't
Yeah, I don't know what
understand the
you're
federal
talking
lands issue unless we see this, and I worry about this as someone who cares deeply about our national parks and our federal lands. Look, Minnesota We protect these things. We've got about 20% of the world's fresh water.
Okay,
These
so he's
lands
got
are
a point
protected.
with
They're
like
there for a
parks
reason. They
and
belong
you
to
know
all of us.
reserves
But
and
again,
reserve
this is
land.
when you
The
view
part that I don't
housing
like with
and you view
Republicans
these
that
things
they
as
suck with, and this
commodities. Like,
happens in
there's a
South
chance to
Dakota,
make
happened in
money here.
Iowa,
Let's take this
happens in
federal land
Nebraska,
and
is
let's sell it
eminent
to people
domain.
for that. I think there's better
Republicans are
ways to do
fucking
this.
terrible
We've
with
seen it in
eminent
Minnesota.
domain.
We're
They
able
will
to
take your
refurbish some of
fucking
these
land.
houses. We're able
They'll
to
take
make
your
some
farmland. They'll take
investments that
fucking
get people in.
anything
And I'm still
to make
am
whatever the
on
fuck
the
they
fact
want,
on
whether
this.
that's a fucking
Economists. Some of
pipeline
the banks said you
or
don't like the
federal
economy.
housing
Which
or
economists
fucking
are
whatever
saying
they're
that
gonna
it is
do.
immigrants that's adding to the
I don't know
country?
why
Governor,
he doesn't go
Governor,
to
your
that.
time
Be
is
like, you know what
your
they're
time
gonna
is
fucking
up,
do? They're gonna
but
take your
Senator,
goddamn
on that
farmland
point, I'd like
and
for
tell
you
you
to
to fuck
clarify, there
off
are
and take
many
eminent
contributing
domain.
factors
Like
to
that's how I
higher
would
housing
attack back
costs.
on that
What
one.
evidence do you
Yeah,
have
that's just me.
that migrants are
Farmers
part of
care
this
about eminent
problem?
domain.
Well,
That's a
there's a
big
Federal
fucking
Reserve
deal.
study that
Dude,
we're
it's
happy
a
to
huge
share
deal.
after the debate. We'll put it up on social media, actually, that really drills down on the connection between increased levels of migration, especially illegal immigration, and higher housing prices. Now, of course, Margaret, that's not the entire driver of higher housing prices. It's also the regulatory regime of Kamala Harris. Look, we are a country of builders. We're a country of doers. We're a country of explorers. But we increasingly have a federal administration that makes it harder to develop our resources, makes it harder to build things, and wants to throw people in jail for not doing everything exactly as Kamala Harris says they have to do. And what that means is that you have a lot of people who would love to build homes who aren't able to build homes. I actually agree with Tim Walz. We should get out of this idea of housing as a commodity. But the thing that has most turned housing into a commodity is giving it away to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What
Wait,
are the
if
federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
housing's
You
not a
can very
commodity,
quickly
what is
reply.
it?
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, that in some cases, many of those are local, many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things. So which are the regulations?
You make
Because
fireproof
the vice
housing?
president's not responsible for those. Congress writes those.
Governor,
That's what
thank
he's
you,
talking about.
gentlemen.
That's definitely what he's talking about.
We have
What,
a lot
like
to
wait,
get
he
to.
was
You're
he was
passionate about the
handed
housing
something
crisis.
actually really
I
good
can
there, and
tell.
I was like,
But
"What the
Nora,
fuck are you gonna make
thank you. One
fireproof
of the top
houses?"
problems facing Americans is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate, former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care
Trump
Act.
sucks on this
In
issue. We'll
response,
see
he
how bad
said,
this is.
I
Yeah.
have concepts of a
Ugly.
plan. Since then,
I have
Senator, you've
concepts
talked
of a
about
plan,
changing
that's
how
right.
chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you explain how that would work? And can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course, we're going to cover Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health
Well,
care.
it's not the federal government's
I
job to
believe
do this.
Members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. I think it's very simple common sense. I think as Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress, you're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital,
You still can't
you
get
try to buy something,
pricing
and nobody
transparency.
knows
Yeah.
what it actually costs.
We ask for
That price
itemized bills because
transparency
we
will
are
actually
cash
give
payers,
American
and it
consumers
takes
a
like an
little
act
bit
of
more
God.
choice, and will also drive down costs.
Well, and you can only
And we
get them
talked
when they
about,
take you to
you know,
collections
the
anyway.
reinsurance regulations.
But
is
we
what I was
usually
talking
get
about.
them.
Look,
We
Donald
get our
Trump has
itemized
said
bills. It
that
just
if we
takes a
allow
while.
states to experiment a little bit,
Well, because
on
they
how
don't
to
know what they
cover both the
charge.
chronically
No,
ill, but the
exactly.
non-chronically ill,
They're like,
it's
wait a
not
second.
just a
They got to make
plan.
that shit
He
up.
actually
You don't have
implemented
insurance?
some of these regulations when
Oh,
he was
shit.
president of the United States. And I
It's
think you
like
can make a really
they
good
panic,
argument that it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along. And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have
He
to
didn't do
agree
anything
with
for
everything
Affordable
that
Care Act.
President
He
Trump
just like
has
he
ever
ended the
said or
mandate.
He
ever
just kept it
done.
alive.
But
That's all he
when
did.
He
Obamacare
ended the
was
mandate, which was
crushing
the
under
only
the
thing
weight
that
of
made
the
it like
regulatory
actually
burden
like
and healthcare costs,
like
Donald Trump
not
could have destroyed
affordable,
the
but like
program.
actually paid
Instead,
for
he
itself.
worked
Like
in a
he
bipartisan
ended
way
the
to
mandate, so people
ensure
didn't
that
have to do
Americans
it.
had
They didn't get
access to
fined.
You
affordable
still have
care.
to file
It's
it on
not
your
perfect,
tax
of
form,
course,
though.
and there's
They
so
still
much
give you
more
the
that we can
schedule.
do. But I
Do
think
you?
that
Every
Donald
year, I
Trump
get the
has
schedule
earned
form that
the
I have to
right
fill out
to
that
put
I
in
am
place
insured,
some
my
better
wife's
healthcare
insured, my kid's
policies.
insured.
He's earned it because he did it successfully the first time.
Governor?
All right, here's where being an old guy gives you some history. I was there at the creation of the ACA.
I thought he was
The
gonna be
reason
like,
it
I
was
was
so
there at the
important is
creation of
I
the earth
come
and
from a
Adam and
major
Eve.
healthcare state, home of the Mayo Clinic, home to Medical Alley, 3M, Medtronic, all of those. We understand healthcare. It's why we're ranked first on affordability and accessibility and quality of healthcare. And so what I know is under Kamala Harris, more people are covered than they have before. And those of you listening, this is critical to you. Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare.
And he
On
didn't
day
do
one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA.
He's explained why he
signed
didn't
on
do
to
it
a
because it was
lawsuit
bad.
to repeal the
It was
ACA,
worse than
but
what you
lost at
had.
the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now, fast forward, what that means to you is
Fucking
you
He
have
invoked
conditions.
John
If you're
McCain
sitting at
now.
home, you're not asking too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look,
Fucking
this
Lynn.
issue,
You brought up his
and
clone.
Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan. It cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that.
Wait, was he actually a
But
fourth
what
grade
Senator
teacher?
Vance
We need to
just
fact check
explained
this.
Might be worse than a concept because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done this for a long time. What they're saying is, if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do is let insurance companies pick who they insure because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little older, gray, got cancer, you're going to get kicked out of it. That's why the system didn't work. Kamala Harris will protect and enhance the ACA.
This is why
Senator,
insurance
thank
is
you.
not a good
Senator, you
model.
have not yet
Yes,
explained
thank
how you
you.
would protect people.
I was like,
with
that was the
pre-existing conditions or
argument
laid out
for
by plan.
Obamacare to begin
Well, look,
with
we
was
currently
that
have the
argument,
laws and
and then
regulations in
Obama
place-
fucked
in
it up
place
and
right now
made
to
it
protect people
that
with
argument
pre-existing
again
conditions.
and
We
negotiated
wanna
with
keep
insurance
those
companies and made it
regulations
fucking
in place,
worse.
But we also want to make the health insurance marketplace function a little bit better. Now,
Wait,
what
there's
Governor
no more
Walsh
on
just
children.
said is actually not true. A lot of what happened and the reason that Obamacare was crushing under its own weight is that a lot of young and healthy
He's
people
bandit-
were
he was a
leaving
school
the
teacher.
exchanges. Donald Trump actually helped address that problem, and he did so in a way that preserved people's access to coverage who had pre-existing conditions. But again, something that these guys do is they make a lot of claims about if Donald Trump becomes president, all of these terrible consequences are going to ensue. But in reality, Donald Trump was president. Inflation was low. Take-home
Did you
pay
see
was
that,
higher.
Bob?
And
He
he
looked like a little
saved
turkey.
the
He's
very
like,
program from a
"Oh,
Democratic
oh, oh."
administration that was collapsing and would have collapsed absent his leadership. He did his job, which is govern in a bipartisan way and get results, not just complain about problems, but actually solve them.
Governor, did enrollment under the Affordable Care Act go up under the Trump administration?
It's higher now that we've seen it go up. Look, people are using it. The system works.
That was a
And
yes.
The
Yeah.
question about this of young people, or whatever, that's the individual mandate piece of this. And Republicans fought tooth and nail saying, well, Americans should be free to do this. Well, then
So
what
you
happens
think the
is
individual mandate's a good idea?
you shrink. I think the idea of making sure the risk pool is broad enough to cover everyone, that's the only way insurance works. When it doesn't, it collapses. You are asking pre-ACA where we get people out. Look, people know that they need to be on health care. People expect it to
Nope.
be there.
You don't.
And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying healthcare once you get past 70.
You don't get
So
a
look,
choice
the
on that.
ACA
Maybe
works.
if you would
We
just
can
fund
continue to do better.
hospitals
Kamala Harris did
and
that.
not
The way
insurance
she made
companies.
everything
How
better
about that, you
was
fucking
negotiating
jackass?
those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in
Fuck,
American
this
history.
this
Thank
drives
you,
me
Margaret.
fucking
Can I
crazy. Like
address that?
I apologize.
insurance
We're out of
companies
time. We have
are
1
the
subject
problem.
to
They're
discuss.
like they are
Let's talk
middleman.
about
They don't
families
do
in
anything other than
America.
transfer money.
There is
That's
a
it.
child care crisis
Sure.
in this country, and the
Is
United
there?
States is one of the very few developed countries in the
Feel like John
world
Wayne Gacy entertained
without a
children's
national
birthday
paid
parties.
leave program for new parents. Governor Walz, you said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this
Hold
is a
on.
day one
Child care
priority
crisis
for
was
you.
not a fucking thing
How
until
long
like
should
fucking
employers be
40 years
required to
ago
pay
when
workers
you
while they are
had to
home taking
have
care
a
of their
two-parent
newborns? You
income.
have 2 minutes.
We
Yep.
created
Yeah,
that
well,
mess.
that's
The government's
negotiable,
never
and
going to
that's
fix
what
that
Congress
fucking
worked. But
mess.
here's what the deal is.
Like,
It's
we
like
shipped
Americans
everything
sitting out there
out.
right now.
Like,
You
we've
may
talked
work for a
about this
big company.
historically with
We're
fucking
home in
shipping jobs
Minnesota for some
overseas,
of the largest
manufacturing
Fortune
overseas.
500
All of
companies.
that is a
Kamala Harris
result.
knows that
The
in
result of
California.
all of that, sorry,
Those companies
is
provide
now
paid family
everybody needs
medical
to
leave.
have
One
fucking
is, I
two-income
think they're
households.
moral and they
And
think
now
it's a
your
good thing,
kids need
but it
somewhere to
also
go.
keeps their employees healthy.
And
We
now
in
they get shot in
Minnesota
schools
passed
because
a
mom
paid
can't
family
stay
medical
home or
leave.
dad
You have a
can't stay home.
child,
Like, fuck.
you and I
We
had to go
created
back
this
to work
problem
5
fucking
days
40,
after my
50,
kids were
60
born.
years ago.
This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a
Just need
better
to
start.
import
The
public
family works
schools.
better. We stay in their employers. We get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue. Those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some cases, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that. This is the case of an economy that
You know,
Donald Trump has
If I
set
didn't need
for the
two-person
wealthiest
income,
amongst us. He's willing to give those tax breaks to the wealthiest. He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the
When
economy
did he
works
ever
best
say that?
when it works for all of
This
us.
is
And
fucking
so a paid family medical leave program, and I will tell you, go to the families or go to the businesses and ask them. As far as childcare on this, you have to take it at both the
the
supply and
Biden
the demand
administration
side.
actually
He's
budgeted
Family is
advocate-
the most
to
important
train
Well,
thing
people.
in
like,
our lives.
to your
take
point
care
just
of
a
our
minute ago,
children
he is
or
literally
our
advocating
parents
why
to
we
get
need
paid the
insurance.
least amount of money.
Oh yeah,
But
of
we have
course.
to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business
What do
and
you
then
think
to
is
make
funding
sure
his
that folks are
campaign?
able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family medical leave and help with this will enhance our workforce, enhance our families, and make it easier to have the children that you want.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, do you support a national paid leave program? And if so, for how long should employers be
Why are they
mandated
getting different
to pay
questions?
their employees while they are home taking care of their newborn? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats too have worked on this issue, and I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids.
Here we
but
go
is
with the
also
stories
a
again.
very, very
I was
brilliant
actually talking about this the other
litigator,
day.
and I'm so
Some
proud of
companies
her.
have gone to a
But being working
16-week
mom, even for
paternity.
somebody with all of the advantages of my
paternity
wife, is
leave.
extraordinarily
The guy gets
difficult.
16 weeks
And
off.
it's not
That's
just
crazy.
difficult from a
Fuck
policy
you.
perspective.
That
She
is
actually
crazy.
had access
I
to
wish
paid
I had
family
that
leave
when I
because she
was
worked for
having
a bigger
kids. Like
company.
I
But the
might have had a
cultural
few.
pressure
I'm not buying
on
your
young
products. I'm
families,
mad
and
at you.
especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important.
It shouldn't be
substantive
tied into
difference
insurance
between
though.
Donald Trump and Kamala Harris.
Whether it's government
I mean, look, if you
funded
look at
or
the federal
fucking just
programs
regular
that we have
insurance.
It
in
also
Like,
shouldn't
he's
be-
not wrong
family
with
leave
that
right
statement.
now,
That statement
it
should
should
just
be
be
vol-
inherent to our
I mean, there's
fucking
another
culture.
block grant program
But
that
it all
spends a
should be
lot of money from the
voluntary
federal
to the
government.
company. Like
These
the company shouldn't be
programs only
forced to
go
offer
one
that.
kind of
You
childcare
know what I
model.
mean?
Let's say you'd like your
Yeah.
church maybe
Leave
to
that
help you
company
out
if
with
they don't give you
childcare.
leave.
Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to
Exactly.
get
Mention his
together
kids
with
again.
families in your neighborhood to provide child
And
I
a
have
care.
beautiful
3
wife.
beautiful
So you need to get
multiracial
access to
kids.
any of
Don't
this
call me
facility.
racist.
We want to promote choice and how we deliver family care and
Oh,
how
that's
we
right. What
deliver
is his wife
childcare.
like? Indian
Because
or
look, it is
Yeah, yeah.
unacceptable. And, of course, Tim and I have been on the campaign trail a lot the past 7 or 8 weeks. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Senator, thank you.
Oh, they're
You
agreeing.
have
This is
also
the
said,
uniparty
Senator
at its
Vance,
best.
many things about the American family. The Federal Reserve says parents will spend nearly as much on childcare as they do on housing each month. So I want to get your thoughts
That's
on this.
fucking gross.
President Trump recently said,
There's
as
a
much
Federal
as childcare is
Reserve.
talked about as being expensive, it's relatively speaking not very expensive.
Oh, and that
compared to
statement.
the
You should
kinds
listen
of
to the
numbers
Federal
we're
Reserve.
All of
taking
that
in.
was gross.
Oh.
The Federal
If
Reserve,
President
the
Trump
housing
committed
payment,
to
and the child payment.
$5,000 per child tax credit that you have described. You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American workers.
You mean
That's
Tesla?
part of the Donald
You
Trump
mean
economic
Tesla,
plan.
Samsung,
Cut taxes
Apple?
for American workers and American
Like,
families.
what?
Cut taxes for
That and he
businesses
says
that are
penal a
hiring and
lot. I
building
kinda-
companies
I
in
don't
the
know,
United
you know,
States of
it's-
America, but
Sounds
penalize
kinda fun.
companies and
Penalize it.
countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, childcare options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Oh my God.
Can you clarify how that will solve the childcare shortage?
Well, because
you're
Tim said, a lot
penalizing
childcare
all of
shortages
these
is we just don't
companies,
have
you dumb
enough
bitch.
resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options, and we're going to have to.
But do you know what
unfortunately, look, we're going to
penal
have to spend
means?
more money.
Like,
We're gonna
let's
have
just
to
say
induce
penal a bunch more
people
times.
to want to provide
Yeah,
child
we're
care
gonna
options for
find them.
American
We're gonna take
families.
their money,
And the
and then
reason
we're
it's
gonna
so
make
expensive
daycares
right now
that
is
will
because you've
run
got way too
freely
few
and
people
Hey,
efficiently.
providing those
commentator,
essential
Work it
do you
all.
services.
know?
Thank
Do you
you,
know what
Senator. Governor Walz,
police are? Do you
your
know what tickets are?
also has some child care tax credit proposals.
Like when you break
Do you
a
think Congress
rule,
will
we
agree to
ask
the
for money
$6,000
as a
credit for
fine.
newborns and $3,000
Do you understand that
credit for
concept?
children
We're
over
going
the
to
age of
penalize
6,
companies
as
for
your
breaking
campaign has
rules and use
promised?
that
Is
money to pay for
realistic?
this.
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's 5,000 or
Every time they
6,000,
call
that
Waltz, he
saves you about
responds
3 or
like they
4
caught
months.
him in the
Let's
middle
be
of a
clear. We're
colonoscopy.
people out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance.
I've had a
I'm not-
colonoscopy. I don't
I'm
think
not
that's
opposed to what
accurate.
he's talking
I'm just
about
saying.
on options. We've done scholarship types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another 4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater. And so I think the issue here is, if those members of Congress, I can't believe they're not. When I go to businesses, sure, they'll talk about taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing, because we know the problem is, especially in a state like Minnesota, we need more workers because our economy's growing, but we need the
Oh,
work.
Minnesota, you fucking
Governor,
cocksucker.
thank you. We need to move on. Nora?
Let's talk about the state of democracy, the top issue for Americans after
Well,
the
yeah, let's talk
economy
about
and
democracy.
inflation. After the 2020 election, President Trump's campaign and
But did
others
someone walk in
filed
on you
62
during it?
lawsuits
I wouldn't know. I was
contesting
out.
the results. Judges,
Like a group
including
of
those
people could've walked
appointed
in
by
while they
President
were
Trump and
sticking
other
camera in my
Republican presidents,
Wouldn't know.
looked at the evidence and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors
Here
to
we go.
Congress for January 6th.
January 6th,
Senator
baby.
Vance, you have said you would
Senator
not
Vance,
have
would
certified the
you
last
have
presidential
done what
election
Mike
and would have
Pence
asked the
didn't
states to submit
do?
alternative electors. That has been called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's
Yes.
election results, even
wanna
if
hear it.
every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, Nora, first of all, I think that we're focused on the future. We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies.
Good dodge.
Make housing affordable, make groceries affordable,
Read right.
and that's
Read
what we're
right.
focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it.
Yeah.
Look, what President Trump has
She
said
did
is
ask
that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square. And that's all I've said. And that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration.
Boom.
I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over
He's practiced
politics.
this one.
It's
This is
big
good.
technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's
January
Kamala
6th.
Harris saying that rather than debate and
You know it
persuade
had to
her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud.
I'm gonna step out for a quick
especially given
smoke.
that I was
I'll be
raised by
listening
two
Right.
lifelong blue-collar Democrats to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues. And that to me is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said when he said that protesters should peacefully protest on January the 6th.
Governor?
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator. But
me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this, and the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this
Frog in the
election,
pond?
and he said he did.
In the frying pan.
140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day. Some with the American flag, several later died. And it wasn't just in there.
Not several.
In
One.
Minnesota, a group gathered on the state capitol grounds in St. Paul
No.
and said, we're marching to
stand
the
corrected.
governor's residence
sorry.
and there may be casualties.
There were
The only
Capitol Police
person
that
there was
died
my son and his dog,
afterwards,
who was
but they
rushed
died
out
of
crying by
suicide
state
not
police.
from the actual.
That issue
Right.
and Mike Pence standing there as they were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Mike Pence made the right decision. So, Senator, it was adjudicated over and over and over. I worked with kids long enough to know, and I said,
Yeah,
as a football
seriously.
coach, sometimes you really want to win, but the democracy is bigger than winning an
Died in
election. You
Minneapolis.
shake hands, and then you try and do everything you can to help the other side win. That's what was at stake here. Now, the thing I'm most concerned about is the idea that imprisoning your political opponents, already laying the groundwork for
Oh, you're
people not
considering-
accepting this.
You're
And a
concerned with that?
president's words matter. A
Oh.
president's words matter. People hear that. So I think this issue of
I
settling
feel
our
like JD's
differences at
got a
the ballot
shitty
box,
grin on his face. He's ready
shaking
to
hands when we
jump on this
lose,
one.
being honest about it, but to deny what happened on January 6th, the first time in American history that a president or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power. And here we are 4 years later in the same boat. I
That's
will
just
tell
a
you
lie.
this, that when this is over, we need to shake hands this election, and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country apart.
Margaret?
Senator Vance, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, well, look, Tim, first of all,
Words
it's
matter.
really
is the
rich
speak for my
for
feelings here.
Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton in
Hillary Clinton, yeah.
2016 said
Yeah.
that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been
100,000.
going on for a long
100,000.
time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy
Yep.
that.
Great response. Agreed.
Governor?
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist history on
What?
this. Look, I
What is he talking about?
don't understand how we got to this point. But the issue was that happened. Donald Trump can do it. And all of us say there's no place for this. It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship. to
Trump's
stop
not
people
responsible
from
for
doing-
January 6th.
threatening to kill
If
someone.
he was, he
threatening
would
to
have
do
been
something.
charged.
That's
He
not
would be in
censorship.
jail.
Censorship
This
is
is serious.
banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up.
Ridiculous.
I just think for everyone tonight, and I'm going to thank Senator Vance. I think this is the conversation they want to hear. And I think there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on.
Conflation is not a
Restore
bad
democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested
Except the
itself
way that
because
they've
of
gone
Donald
after
Trump's
Trump.
inability to say.
He
is still saying
actually
he lose the election? I would just ask that. Did he
Was the
lose
cause of
2020
January
election?
6th. Are you
Tim,
seriously
I'm
like you're
focused on
telling
the
me he wouldn't
future.
be in
Did
jail right
Kamala
now?
Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is
Has she tried to-
that is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to
No,
use the
threatening or
power
hate
of
speech.
government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't
Senator,
wear
the governor
masks.
does
That's
have the
not
floor.
Sorry.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every
Speak.
American.
Senator, the governor
Now.
does have the floor for 1 minute to
Please.
respond to you.
Yeah. Well, I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see a candidate out there who refused, and now again,
Surely
and
the
so I'm pretty
Democrats
shocked
do.
by this. He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not. It's not anything anywhere other than in Donald Trump's world. Because look, when Mike Pence made that decision to certify that election, that's why Mike Pence isn't on this stage. What I'm concerned about is where is the firewall with Donald Trump? Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election, and his vice president's not going to stand to it? That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree.
This is good
She
strategy.
wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates. The CBS News vice presidential debate continues.
I don't think that last on said anything. Like, I mean,
So it wasn't to appeal to us or
no, I agree. I agree.
It's meant to
completely.
appeal to normies because normies hear what CNN and MSNBC say, that JD Vance is there to be the bully pulpit for Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump doesn't win this election, somehow he's going to be in charge of deciding who's going to accept the fucking votes and not accept the votes. It's a completely illogical fucking argument at its base. However, the fear they have instilled in people is there. It's a fear double down. It's fear mongering, and it works. Republicans use it all the time. When Democrats use it in this scenario, like, I get it. And honestly, for the normies out there that don't understand how this whole process actually works, are like, oh my God, is he going to be in the place of Mike Pence and then not accept the electoral college votes because they heard one podcast one day talking about it that was an ill-informed fucking retard that they listen to all the time? That's what wins. Like, that was probably, I say, Tim Walz's best response, even though it was completely illogical, and any of us that know anything about what happens when the votes are done and they have the whole thing run through and do the processes, we know that's stupid, but most people don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing.
He just got a bunch of votes for that.
The fear thing, right? Double down on fear. That's what Lynn just said. And it's true. And it's so true. And I actually was talking about with my wife about this earlier. I was like, I don't understand the people that, like, I really dislike Kamala. And that's mostly just because of the party, like,
and she's a cop.
Well, yeah, and they want me to die because of my opinions. Like, so, like, I'm not a big fan of Democrats.
Shut up, you.
But also, the Republicans are not they're not my favorites either. So I'm like, I really don't like them either. But there's a distinct hatred for Trump for some reason, and then in some ways there's a distinct love for Trump, and there's a distinct love for Kamala, and I don't get it. Like, I don't I don't get the love or the hatred. Like to me, like they both are despicable human beings. So it's hard for me. I really don't understand. I really don't understand. So
America is dumb. That's all you need to understand.
but that's what you're saying, like Tim giving this argument that like, oh, she just understands that I'm gonna be that vice president that's gonna give everything away. Like that's a wonderful thing. People just like, oh, Tim, you're so wonderful.
It's what Democrats are good at. We're going to give you free money. We're going to give you all these things, and we're going to make it so we want you to not have to pay for healthcare because that's
they're
a
also
human
fucking
right. And
liars.
they're going to make up a whole bunch of shit that's not real, that sound really good to somebody who doesn't fucking understand principles and constitutional norms and like what is actually going on in the world. Like, and still, you know what I'm most pissed off about? There's no fucking mention so far about like all the missiles fucking flying and
foreign policy has to be next. It has to be.
Iran's attacking fucking Israel and
it
we're
has to
defending them and shooting down those missiles, costing us $100 million. Just today cost us $100 million to defend fucking Israel. And then we don't even stop Israel and say, hey guys, stop this shit. We fucking condemned it. And Donald Trump and fucking Kamala Harris are going to do the same thing. They're going to condemn it and they're going to say, fuck Iran. And it's all over Twitter today. We want regime change. Here we fucking go. In Iran, you think Iraq was bad. You think Afghanistan was bad. You wait till fucking we go to war with Iran. This is going to be a shit show.
But it's not just gonna be Iran.
Closing statements.
No, it
Senator
won't.
Vance,
It's going to be
They're part
Russia
of
and
BRICS,
China.
right?
coin toss
Are they
and
part of
elected to
BRICS?
go last. So Governor Walz, you are first.
Gonna be
You have 2
bad.
minutes.
It's
Well,
gonna be real
thank
bad.
you, Senator Vance. Thank you to CBS News. And most importantly,
They're doing closing statements.
thank
They're
you
not
to
even
all of
talking
you.
about it.
If you're still
Oh,
up
shit.
and the folks who miss Dancing with Our Stars, I appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here.
I was gonna get
And
another
I'm as
beer.
surprised as anybody of this coalition that Kamala Harris has built, from Bernie Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift, and a whole bunch of
Yep.
folks in between there.
No Port Authority
And they
strike.
don't
They
all
mentioned
agree
it
on
in the
everything,
opening, but we
but
didn't
they
talk
are
about it.
truly optimistic people. They believe
those
in a
greedy
positive
sons of
future of this
bitches.
country
Get back
and
to
one where
work.
our politics can be better than it is. And I have to tell you that that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone, not just to get by, but to get ahead. And the idea that freedom really means something, not the freedom of government to be in your bedroom or exam room, but the freedom for you to make choices about yourself. Now, look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage, and then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will
That's
stand
fucking
with
ridiculous.
Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue to push down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you, I'm
What
going to
is
be
it?
careful about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way.
What?
We don't need to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right. All we have to fear is fear
Well,
itself.
no,
Kamala
it's the
Harris
people
is
that
bringing us a new way
Waltz
forward.
likes
She's
is
bringing us a
China.
politics of joy. She's bringing real solutions for the middle class, and she's
China.
centering you at the heart of that. All the while asking everyone, join this movement,
China.
make your voices heard. Let's look for a new day where everybody gets that opportunity and everybody gets a chance to thrive. I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th for Kamala Harris.
Governor Walz, thank you. Senator Vance, your closing statement.
Well, I want to thank Governor Walz, you folks at CBS, and of course the American people for tuning in this evening. And one of the issues we didn't talk about was energy. And I remember when I was being raised by my grandmother, when she didn't have enough money to turn on the heat some nights because Ohio gets pretty cold at night and because money was often very tight. And I believe, as a person who wants to be your next vice president, that we are a rich and prosperous enough country where every American, whether they're rich or poor, ought to be able to turn on their heat in the middle of a cold winter night. That's gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl. And that too has gotten harder with Kamala because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have
She's been
the
vice
most
president
beautiful
longer
country in the
than,
world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food,
God damn
but
it.
have
Roman
the
Reigns
grace
was
and
WWE
generosity
champion.
to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught
That was
me
at Phil
is that we
KOE that's
have
not
the
listening
greatest
and
country,
probably
the
won't
most
watch.
beautiful country, the most incredible people anywhere in the world. But they're not going to be able to achieve
No, I don't think
their
so.
full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington.
I don't get paid
They're
enough
not
by
gonna be able
Russia
to
to
live their
do that.
American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need
Cares if he
change.
gets paid by
We need
Russia.
a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance, thank you.
Ooh, I like it.
And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day. Please get out and vote. And for all of us here at CBS News, thank you.
Fuck off. All right. So I gotta say, I was really shocked that they actually
That wasn't a bad debate.
they actually challenged Tim Walz to his lies. Really the Tiananmen Square thing. They but they didn't just stop with the question. They're like, hey, no, we asked you this question and you didn't answer it. Like, we asked you specifically. So I
Lynn,
gotta say,
and we'll never hear much from them for 4 years.
yeah. So I'm kind of surprised. I was actually shocked that they actually because he completely evaded the question, and then she was like, no, we asked you this specifically. You said you were there when Tiananmen Square happened, but you weren't. And he was like, I misspoke. I said that earlier. He looked like a liar because he's a fucking liar. But I'm really proud of CBS for actually going after him.
Yeah. I like some of the notes I took on here. So I thought some of the things that Waltz should have had an easy win on: abortion. I thought he fucking failed.
Easily. Yeah.
He failed that. That should have been it's a winning topic for Democrats. He sucked at it. But that was because Vance intervened. Like you mentioned, his lies. When they confronted the most recent, that's not even all of them. They didn't confront him.
They didn't even go back to where he was talking about wartime service and stuff like that. Yeah,
they didn't do the stolen valor shit or any of that.
Nope.
They just brought up this last one with Tiananmen Square, and it was obviously he was lying. So those were huge fails. And here's the deal with these, and those all happened before the first commercial break, which is important because most people are probably tuned out.
Yeah.
And done. It's it's 9:51 Central Time right now. That happened before 9 p.m. Central Time.
Yeah, it's just us nerds that are watching this shit at this point.
Yeah. So those were the important ones that I think he lost. And that's why I think Vance probably took the debate overall. Now, I thought Walz did better in the second hour. Not much better, but he did a little bit better. And I thought Vance was trying to appeal to the bro energy of the hey, I kind of agree with some of that stuff. Hey, he was trying to find the middle ground and do more of that because he had already won, which might have been a smart strategy. But he gave away a couple of things to Waltz, I think, in that second hour. And the moderators, the first hour drove me nuts. And Fox would have brought up his DUI, yeah. The first hour, I thought the moderators were fucking annoying. and it's not that they were doing the fact checking, interrupting, or doing any of that, but like they were. It was a little power trip, I think, because they were like trying to keep it on task and on
Yeah,
track. But
yeah,
you know, these things go off track. You know, they go off track, and,
Yeah.
and like trying to, like, I got a yes or no question for you. Here's 2 minutes. Like, what the fuck are you doing? That's a dumb question. And then giving them 2 minutes for a yes or no question. Like, shut the fuck up. You don't want a yes or no. You gave them a fucking question to give them some context to it. And they're not going to answer yes or no to it. They're going to be as vague as possible. And you fucking know this. Like, why are these questions so stupid? But they did stop the second hour. I thought they did way better in the second hour of just like, go ahead and respond. Like, there was multiple times they're like, go ahead. Like, Walter,
think
you
it's
respond. Vance, you
absolutely-
respond.
I think it's absolutely absurd that they ask one candidate a question and then go to the next candidate and ask them they made it sound like it's the same question, but then they completely went with a different question because they
They'd be like, well, let's dive into this little portion then.
Yeah. They were just like, it was just completely off the reservation.
And I'm sorry, any women that happen to watch this, they did the typical woman thing of, we are going to talk about this specific issue. One person answers it and they're like, okay, you can respond to that, but however, I'm going to bring that issue to a totally different one that has nothing to do with anything that we were talking about and nobody gives a fuck about. And now you're completely confused on what you should be talking about. And that's how I felt. I felt like it was arguing with my wife sometimes.
Vance was
doubling,
trying to
doubling
be
yeah.
Yeah.
I think he did in the last hour, and it may have worked.
Once Vance checked the moderators, they straightened up. No, I don't know.
It was a little after that. Yeah.
Women moderators. Am I
right?
right?
Need a dude up there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but even that dude. Well, so I thought it was so funny that Tim was like, "Oh, so we're not fact checking right now? Okay, well, I'll fact check it." And I'm like,
but
yeah.
then he didn't fact check anything.
But then he didn't
That was
fact
the
check it.
fun
And
part.
also, like, that's not what moderators are supposed to fucking do. Like, their job is to ask questions and let you hang yourself.
That
or
was the
not.
chance for JD Vance to be like, you see how he wanted the moderators fact check.
He wants
Here's what I'm
censorship.
talking about with the censorship issues, and like took it back to that issue. But like the censors, like anybody who's upset with censorship's already voting for him. So I don't think that's a winning conversation.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants fact checks is already on Waltz's side. So like there was very few moments in this that I think they really crossed the aisle, and that's where I thought Waltz did a good job in the second hour of the fear mongering thing, to where those people, like those dumb libertarians that don't pay attention to what's going on, those independents that actually don't read the fucking news and don't have any beliefs, values, or systems in place, they went, oh my God, what if JD Vance is there that day counting the votes? Which is not a thing. He will not be there that day. But like that's what's running through their fucking head because they're fucking retards. So the retard vote just went to Waltz if they watch that second hour. And yes, they're eating the cats.
Yeah, when he gave that argument, I'm just like,
They're eating the dogs.
This is absurd. Like you can't let them decide. You can't. It's like like the whole thing that Pence made the right decision. Like even like he made it sound like that was like in the middle of January 6th. Like people were like storming the Capitol at the time, and he was like, no, and he's like pulling the lever. Oh, you know, like it's like no, like they voted like 4 hours after everything was cleaned up, after they cleaned up Ashley Babbitt's blood, and they fucking moved on. And yeah, they fucking, it's not just like,
here you go, pull up that's
hold on, here we go.
I'll become friends with school shooters, literally everyone.
Like, what?
Thanks, Bandit, for that one.
Thank you, sir. Let's see here. They're eating cats.
They're eating the dogs.
1/6/25. It will be Harris in that position. Will it be? I don't know.
You think she'll stop the vote? That would be the fucking perfect reversal of everything. But she actually goes through with the alternate electors. Totally fucking flips the script.
Well, I'm glad he brought up. I'm glad he brought up Hillary Clinton. That was huge. Like
That was?
JD Vance, because that's what she did, and that's
That goes back. Now it doesn't go back necessarily in a negative way, because like I'm pretty sure George Bush Jr. lost the 2000 election, but that it goes back to then. It goes back to then.
hanging chads. But I mean,
Yeah.
either way, going back to Hillary Clinton and the whole like Steele dossier and Russian collusion and like
Oh, and she's still at it. She's still in her interview.
that is like
fucking thing.
2.5 to 3 years of the Donald Trump presidency where he basically was not able to do anything.
He's an illegitimate president.
Yeah, because he's not my president. He's not my president. And like again, I don't like the fucking guy, and I don't think he's a very good president. But the fact of the matter is like you didn't let him do anything he wanted to do, including build a fucking wall on the border. And guess what fucking happened? Like,
Now they're eating the cats.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
eating. They're killing your pets.
yeah. Fucking insane. Just fucking insane. So, yeah. So apparently the Democrats are the only ones that are allowed to question elections. That's it. Like,
Well, yeah.
everyone else
Jesus Christ, what's
Not
wrong with
allowed.
you?
not
You
allowed.
fucking bigot.
You fucking. Yep. True. All right.
True. So, do you think there'll be like I know they're talking there probably won't be any more debates. Do you think there'll be a last minute Kamala Trump debate? We're 5 weeks out.
I think Trump has nothing to lose by debating again.
Does he have anything to gain?
He does, because he should demand. He goes, "Hey, last two I did on enemy turf. Like this is a Fox News debate." Boom.
Well, he already threw that out there and she denied it. So,
Yeah, then fuck her. Then
but it
like,
doesn't get reported that way. So,
no, of course not. Of course not. But like that should be the only. Yeah, that should be the only way he did it. Like because, of course, like he went on enemy territory the first couple times, and yeah, I would say the second time. I mean, the first time obviously he won because that guy had to step down, and then they non-democratically elected their their nominee that way. But and then I would say it was kind of like a toss-up. Like he didn't with the debate with Kamala. Like he didn't. I wouldn't say he won, but also like he didn't lose either. So, but
I thought
she-
they both lost.
well, I feel like her goal was to like keep Democrat voters in her corner, and she did that.
She achieved the easy goal of goading Trump into dumb responses.
But yeah, like again, like she looked like the reasonable one, and I think that was pretty much.
She
her
looked fake
goal.
though. She looked phony, and that's always been her
Because we
biggest
don't
problem.
like her, and
Yeah,
you're
she
right, but, like we don't like her, and that's true. I agree with you, but
like when I turn my normie brain on, when I like go back and rewatch that, I go, well, Trump's a fucking retard for responding to the whole
it.
goddamn my rallies are awesome thing. Like I was like, God damn it. Like in the moment, I was sitting there going, fucking Christ, are you serious? And I'm watching Tony and Phil, and I'm like, guys, do you not fucking see what's going on right now? Like, Jesus Christ, she's baiting him and he's fucking eating it up. But at the same time, she's sitting there doing this. Like, nobody stands at a podium and doesn't put their elbow down. She was holding her elbow in the air. You do not rest your fucking chin on your hand without resting your elbow on something. I'm like, this is the fakest fucking imagery that you could fucking come up with. And she's fake, like purposely. It was so fake. And how did you not see it? Anybody who's ever fucking done a goddamn performance or spoken in front of anybody, you know that's the dumbest thing you could do. It's like YouTube videos when they do this too much and they're always moving their hands in front of the video. Do you ever notice that? You'll like watch one, they're like, then there was this, and then this, and then this. That's what it reminded me of. And it's like, oh, I shut those fucking videos off. I don't care what they fucking say.
cannot watch that.
This is so fake.
Yeah.
That's what she reminded me of the whole
I
time
agree
with
with you.
the normie brain. Yeah.
I agree with you completely, but the fact of the matter is that people, again, Democrats love Democrats, and the fact of the matter is she didn't turn any of those people off, and that was really the most important thing. Like, if she would have gone out there and been Joe Biden, where she couldn't remember her name, then
Right.
they would have been like, "Oh, damn, like, I'm gonna stay home." Like, but she didn't do that. But and if you
Did you-
watch
Real
if you
quick,
watch the interview, if you watch the interview before the debate, you would be like, "What the fuck?" Like, yeah, she's just as clueless as Joe. But
Did you hear fucking Biden? I think it was today or yesterday. A reporter asked him, "What do you think about the strikes that are going on in Lebanon right now?" And he
you
goes,
should get vaccinated.
No. It was almost as bad. He's like, well, I believe in the rights of workers to be able to, negotiate their wages. He thought it was a workers' strike.
Well,
And then
someone-
a missile strike. That motherfucker has no clue that they're getting bombed the fuck out of Lebanon right now.
Someone asked him about Israel or
That's the
something like
dumbest
that. He
fucking
was
thing
talking
I've
about
ever
getting vaccinated.
When he said it, I was like, oh my God, is this a Tony G skit? Like, holy shit. You couldn't make that shit up. He's like, President, what do you think about the strikes in Lebanon right now? Well, collective bargaining is really important. It's like,
What the fuck? Okay, Bandit says another debate will only happen if internal polling shows Harris is behind. Lynn says, I do like the earring bug in
yeah,
her.
I mentioned at the beginning of the show, like, I wish Waltz had earrings.
If Harris loses, there will be a lot of comparison to Hillary.
Oh, she is pretty close. It's pretty close.
She's not like her voice is not as screechy, like, so that's like a win in her favor. But other than that, she sounds like an idiot most of the time.
The only difference between her and Hillary is like Kamala kind of gets her generation. Like Hillary is full on mega elitist boomer.
Yeah.
She's the worst kind of boomer there is. The rich elite boomers that go, you guys are fucking up the whole world and I could have fixed it for you if you just fucking let me be fucking king or queen, like whatever the fuck she thinks is supposed to happen. Like Hillary is like a whole different kind of evil from an older generation. Like what was the let them eat cake type shit from France back in the day? That's Hillary Clinton. I don't see Kamala quite as divisive and evil because she tries to act like a common person. She just sucks at it and she's fake. And so that's why black people like there's so many, like there's huge poll movements you keep seeing, like the black population, like especially males, they ain't buying her shit. The males see black males see right through her and go, that bitch is fucking phony.
Well, let's be serious. Like black people are looking at her and like, well, she's not black. And if she's claiming she's black, she ain't black. Like they know that. Like they know that. They know that.
I just might have to say that, I may have called some of that years ago, but
let's see. Lynn says, let's face facts. If there are undecided voters, none of these debates push anyone in any direction. I'm not sure that's true. Like, because if
that's if there's no undecided voters. Well, if you're undecided, by definition, you'll never get pushed in another direction. Yeah.
But even so, say there is an undecided voter and he's watching the debate or she is watching the debate, and one person is really bad, like
Tim Waltz fucking totally fumbling the goddamn did you lie about fucking being at Tiananmen Square, which is fucking crazy.
You would hope so, but it's hard for me to objectively look at either one of these people because I dislike them both so much. So I don't know. I don't know how I really don't know.
I don't know how you overcome that Tiananmen Square bit. Like,
no, that's a flat out lie.
That was the worst thing in this whole debate.
He flat out lied. Yeah. Let's see here. Bandit, Brendan. But the problem with her not losing Democrats' argument is the bar is so low. It could have done anything as so long as she literally didn't shit herself.
I don't
on
know.
stage.
There was still going to be 45% of people that voted for Biden, and he would have shit himself on stage. So
Yeah, like, but that's my
we're talking 5% of people.
but that's my point though. That she didn't screw up bad enough to like make people go away. Like that's my point. That was my point. So, yes, we're saying the same thing, just in a different way. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that she shit her pants.
oh, sorry.
Break down in tears every time she's talking. Yeah, agreed.
Tears of laughter.
Yeah. Lynn says Hillary worships an owl god in the woods.
She does.
Bandit Lynn, the only reason for debates is the entertainment value when one candidate shits themselves on stage. What is this with you and shitting people on stage? Like, Bandit, what's going on, man? Lynn says, yep. And Biden did shit himself on stage.
You remember when that was going to be a thing? The smell-o-vision?
Oh my God.
Do you remember seeing the ads for that? You
No,
get a
I
little
remember-
box to put in front of your TV and you load it with cartridges and then like whatever, like they'd have a Pine Sol commercial and it would like load scents and shoot it into the air so you could smell the Pine Sol. It was an advertisement thing that they were going to work on, but nobody would buy it. Like it was dumb.
I remember in my social studies or whatever books, it was that in
My butt's been wiped.
in the year 2000 whatever, like 2009, that all of the natural resources were going to disappear. Like there's going to be no more oil. So yeah, good thing those
Somebody posted the picture of the Statue of Liberty back in it was like in 1896 and then again like just a couple years ago and the ocean level is exactly the same.
Yeah, like
My God, this
so
climate catastrophe is just getting out of control.
Bandit says, don't judge. I love people shitting themselves on stage. Getting back to racist.
Yes.
Shut up, racist.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Bigot.
God. Yeah, no, like I'm just, yeah, like I said, like I just don't think she did anything bad enough. Like she was ridiculous. When I looked at her doing whatever she was doing on stage, it was like it was a performance. Like she obviously was coached, right? And then the fact that it came out later that she was fed the questions, that makes a lot more sense. Like it's obvious that like she knew how to react to answers, questions, and that type of thing. Like that makes a lot more sense when you look at it. But I'm just saying that, like, again, like all of us guys that are on here now, Bandit, Lynn, Chicken, myself, we pay attention to this stuff. Like we see these people, we dislike these people. So it's hard for us to objectively look at this and just be like, oh no, like that's just completely normal. So yeah, I don't know. It's just
I'm like super disappointed they didn't talk about like what's actually happened, like the rail workers thing. I got CBS pulled up right now. It's went to local news, so I don't get to see.
Yeah, Lynn says they're running fact checks on CBS right now. Bandit says they've
talking to Byron Donalds right now.
they've got to put on a dumpsters fryer. Yeah, I mean, like, but I mean, like, if they just ask the question about
They just said Kamala was never the border czar. No, of course she wasn't, because a border czar would have done a good job.
yeah.
No, I was super disappointed that like
When Tim said that the border crossings are down from the fucking
from Trump. Yeah,
I was like, oh
like,
my
what
God.
the fuck?
Like, how did you how do you say that with shit with a straight face?
I'm like I said, I'm super disappointed in that they didn't talk about the shipyard workers or the current strike going on, because that's going to have huge implications if it continues to go on. And Biden said he's not going to stop it. He could put the 90-day cool down on, blah blah blah, and I think it's going to get there. I think it's going to go about a week or two,
Yeah.
and then we're going to start seeing some shit happen. And then he's going to have to do that. But like, I don't know if you've watched the interview with the dude that's leading that whole goddamn that strike. He said, do it. And you know what you're getting out of us today, we're going to give you like 8% production. We'll go back to work for 90 days where we're not going to work that hard, and we'll wait you out for 90 days until we get our contract that we want. Like he's holding America hostage.
Yeah.
Because, and like, you can
The
argue,
average-
you know,
And the average
there's-
worker makes how much at that fucking ship?
$39 is what they are obligated as a minimum wage for that specific union. They want it to go to $79 over 6 years. So that's like, it's a huge jump.
There was an average worker at that port makes $140,000 a year.
Oh yeah, yeah. They make good money, but they're saying to get new people in there to work is hard right now at the 39.
Yeah.
So, but like
That's like the rest of the world. Like trying to find
You-
someone to fucking
right.
entry level work.
But here's the
hard.
deal. They're going to demonize. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to demonize this goddamn union on the news. You're going to see Democrats demonize union workers for doing this strike and fucking all the like. They're going to be like, they're fucking the country over. These guys contract, it was 6 years. And every 6 years they re-up. It just happens to be an election year. And so they get to hold people hostage. And they got fucked when you look at how much money those transporting ships get to make fucking going back and forth. Those motherfuckers made way more money during COVID than anybody did. And nobody bitched about that whole fucking thing. Like the price of goods that went up and when we were actually getting shit shipped in. And the reason a lot of our inflation is here today is a lot of those goddamn shipping companies never got any attention from federal regulators because they're international shippers. So that's what the rail workers are like. Hey, these motherfuckers are making tons of money and we're losing a bunch of our labor to go work for these guys now. Like we have to be competitive in order to keep up with this shit. And we can't handle the workload that's coming. So they have plenty of arguments, whatever. We'll get that. Like that'll come in future months. But that shit's going to wreck our economy. It's going to cost $8 billion a day was one estimate I saw today to the U.S. economy. That's fucking crazy. That's huge. Within a week, we're going to start feeling it in steel prices, in lumber prices, like construction, like all the fucking rebuilding America bullshit that Biden wanted to do. That's going to get put on fucking pause. It's gonna get halted fast. You're gonna have imported foods gonna be a problem, like wheat and grain. Like, yeah, we have some stuff, but Jesus Christ, we import a lot of stuff from overseas, especially when it comes through that East Coast and fucking Gulf of Mexico. They can still get shit through the West Coast.
Subsidized corn. Like,
But what's it going to do to fuel prices when it comes for everything's going to be coming through the West Coast where fuel prices are already fucking insane. And then you're going to shift all your fucking drivers to the fucking other side of the country to keep up and keep us all fucking fed. Fuel prices are going to skyrocket. Fucking basic goddamn food goods are going to go up. Don't do the toilet paper panic. That shit's made in Arizona and like it's all made here in the country. It'll go up in price a little bit, but it's going to be available. Don't freak out. Stop.
Listen,
buying toilet
I
paper.
don't think you heard Tim. He said that we are making more oil than ever before.
Maybe per gallon, but we're using more than ever before too. So, like, there's
That-
a
that-
you know
well, that
there's
was
a supply demand here, and then the other one I'm super pissed about is they did not talk about what's going on in Israel at all. They like totally glossed over that. We are this fucking close to our kids being drafted into a fucking war in a few years.
That scares me. Your child is actually close to drafting.
Yeah,
Mine's
he's
are
15
mine are
right
not.
now.
Yeah,
Mine's
and
about to turn 16 years old.
Yeah, dude, I am actually
Your
freaked out about
sons and daughters are gonna go fucking die for some goddamn genocidal goddamn country that does not give a fuck, and they just want our tax dollars to fund their stupid fucking war because some fucking dipshit that just really hates a small group of fucking people That if you just learn how to deal with some of them fucking 30 years ago, none of this would be happening. But instead, we keep poking the bear, and they poke the bear back, and it's like one of those neighborhood wars when you like look across the street and you see your neighbor that's like, "Hey, why are you still being a dick to the guy down the road?" And then he spray paints your car, and then you egg his house, and then he breaks your window, and then all of a sudden you both end up in jail. Like the whole time you're going, I think this could have been stopped a while ago. That's what's happening right now. And now it's switching to, it went to fucking Lebanon. Now it's heading over to fucking, now it's going to Iran. You do not want this Iran deal. Like, Jesus
This is bad.
fucking Christ.
This is so bad.
Gonna
Like,
be way worse. You thought about fucking Afghanistan, Iraq, and what the implications of that were to my generation, the kids I knew that I grew up with, that had their arms and legs blown off. Lynn, my brother in the chat, fucking, he was there. He saw this shit go on, the shit he had to deal with. It's gonna be worse and more long term. Those guys have way more fucking military might and way more fucking ammunitions. And meanwhile, we're paying fucking Afghanistan and the Taliban $85 million a week. We are funding the Taliban $85 million a week right now.
No,
The fuck are
no
we
way.
doing? None
No
of that
way,
comes
that's
up in
not
this fucking debate.
no,
Jesus.
that can't be happening. Yeah.
No,
is-
it's happening.
Oh, I'm sure it is. It's fucking idiots. We can't pay any of our bills. I mean, why not pay the Taliban? So
And we accidentally paid them $250 million plus dollars. We didn't even know we did. We accidentally gave them $250 million one day. We're like, oops.
think about that. You can't
What
afford.
was it? 9/11? 9/11 cost $500,000 for the Taliban, but we just gave them $250 million.
Yeah.
And then $80 million a week.
Well,
Fuck it, whatever.
The Taliban didn't do 9/11, so we're good.
No, they totally had nothing to do with it. Didn't fund it. Nothing.
No, it was Al Qaeda. It was completely
Oh,
different.
that was funded by Taliban
Saudis.
and Taliban.
Nope. I disagree completely.
Well, either way, it's not that much money to fucking make another 9/11.
Agreed. But like,
And then you have porous borders and fucking everything else going on in the world. Like, why are we setting ourselves up to just get like it? Here's what America's doing right now. Oh, hey, Mr. Criminal. You like being in jail with me? I'm totally innocent. Oh no, I trapped the soap. Oh, that's what's happening right now. We are waiting it. We are waiting for it. It's fucking gonna happen, and it's gonna put us into like we're letting Israel do it to us.
Yeah.
Like Israel's got the soap on a rope, and they're just like dragging it across the bathroom floor.
oh, it's worse than that. I think that it's like they already like
Fucking
shoved
retarded.
they already like shoved it in our mouth. I'm like, do not let go of that soap, and then they're dragging it across the floor. Like they're aggressively making us do like. Well,
Mhm.
I mean,
You want a prediction, and then I'll shut up and I'll let you talk.
let's do it.
October 6th, Donald Trump wins. It's going to happen here. Because as soon as there's word that the border's going to get shut down, money's going to get shut off, you got all the porous border infiltration you need. You got all the money you need. You got all the people in that you need. There will be an October 6th style attack in America if Donald Trump gets elected. This is not me telling you not to vote for Donald Trump. This is like, they're just going to keep going as long as they can build and build and build and do more and more and get more resources in here. It is so easy right now. It will happen eventually, whether Donald Trump wins or not. But I'm just saying, as soon as Donald Trump wins, it'll happen quick, because then they'll be like, oh shit, they're going to shut this down. We better attack now. If Donald Trump loses, it might take a little bit longer, but it's going to happen.
I don't disagree with that. Bandit Chicken. It gets worse. Taylor Swift will be the fortunate son of part 2. I passively aggressively mow 6 inches into my neighbor's lawn because he shot grass clippings in my yard. Yeah, I mean, like,
Fucking neighbors are dicks.
naturally you should be doing that. You mean November?
No.
okay.
No. He said October 6th.
Oh, October 7th. Yeah.
Oh, 7th, whatever. I might have got the date wrong. Who cares? It was October 6th for us and 7th for them, right? Is that why I always get it wrong?
October 7th. You're talking about the Israel attacks when they ended up killing.
Is that why I get the because it like happened on me and my wife's anniversary?
Yeah.
And so it was the 7th for them and the 6th for us. I think that's how it went.
Yeah, I would say it was November 7th, and it was the attack where Hamas actually killed probably very few people, and then Israel ended up killing most of the people with the Hannibal Directive, which turns out to be pretty awful. So,
We need to talk about that sometime.
yeah, like, yeah,
That sounds like a whole show.
yeah, that is definitely a whole show, and then we'll be called anti-Semitic, and
Dude, been there, done that.
I don't really give a fuck. But yeah, I think the fact that they did not bring up the fact that Iran is bombing Israel today, like, is pretty it's kind of strange.
Of a big deal.
It's kind of strange. But really, ultimately, I guess the question is would either one of their foreign policies be different? And I'm not sure they would be.
Okay, if I believe that voting would actually make a difference, and
Yeah.
I compared the two when it comes to foreign policy, I would lean towards Trump heavily.
Red Dawn. Yeah, of course, I would
Just
lean
by the rhetoric. The rhetoric alone.
Agreed. But there is
Policy wise, not so much. There's not a lot of policy.
but their Israel rhetoric, I would say that's not accurate, because both of them, their Israel rhetoric is just like, well, they should be able to defend themselves, and that is just kind of like the generalizations, like they should be able to kill whoever they fucking want whenever they fucking want.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is there's a difference between defending yourself and escalating conflict.
Yes. Yeah. Just killing Hamas or moving into Lebanon, moving into Iran. I mean, just
I
like,
wouldn't have a problem if you were just killing Hamas locally or like just Hamas in general, but that's not what they're doing. They're literally dropping like 24 bombs on a neighborhood to kill one guy. That's
Wrong.
not killing Hamas. That is escalating tensions.
But they moved to
With our bombs, by the way.
But yes, they moved. They don't do anything without the U.S. This is like they don't drop anything without the U.S. So
Oh, and did you hear they masked Biden? Did you know that this and this and this was happening? And he admitted that no, we were not informed. We did not know this was happening. And I'm disappointed in Bibi Netanyahu for doing this. And he's not going to do anything about it. Like, what the fuck?
yeah, we come on. Everyone knows that he's like not in empty suit, right? Like everyone has to know by now.
Oh, the whole thing's just fucking nuts right now. I
Fucking
can't
crazy.
believe it.
It's crazy. But okay, so but yeah, so this doesn't happen without the US.
Nope.
At all. And they moved on from Hamas to Hezbollah and Iran. Like they just like they expanded their footprint. Like they actually did a ground force into Lebanon today, which is crazy. Like the idea that like
Literally.
a year ago, Laterlin, yeah. Thanks for coming on, buddy. A year ago, it was just we got to get rid of Hamas, and now they are picking fights with several different groups of people. Like it's like, and they're only. Let's be serious. The only reason they're doing it is because they think they have the backing of the United States of America. That's
They
it.
do. They do have the backing.
I know,
why.
but that's my point. Like, this is fucking crazy town. This is crazy town. Like, why would it's insane to me. It really is insane to me. I don't get it. Like, I don't get why people in America like still think, and this is a Democrat. Democrats used to be anti-war, and that just seemed to be gone by the wayside.
Yeah, by what 20 years almost now?
Yeah,
It shifted under Obama.
I think you're being generous.
It shifted under Obama because, like, I feel like Democrats were anti-war under Bush, and then
Nope.
Obama gets elected in 2008.
Nope.
And then I think it was around 2012 is when the big shift happened. That's when like the drone strikes of America. When did he kill that American citizen with the drone strike? That was in what, 2013?
Yeah, but like even before then, like the Iraq invasion, the second Iraq invasion doesn't happen without Biden and Democrats. It doesn't happen.
True.
It doesn't
But-
happen.
Well, okay, so maybe 2012 was like the full frontal face of it, where we got to all go, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. Because Warhawk John McCain couldn't win because Obama was so pro-war.
No, it's even before that. It's even before it was a second invasion with George Bush, right? Like 2003, 2004, because he invaded Iraq after Afghanistan. So I think that under false pretenses with Dick Cheney and what's the guy's name there?
What?
Doesn't matter.
Didn't matter. They were all awful.
It doesn't matter. They're all fucking liars. So Dick Cheney, George Bush, and Biden actually convinced. He's on the Intel committee, and he knew that shit was garbage. Like it was a complete lie, and he convinced Democrats to vote for that second invasion. Which, yes, you're thinking that I was talking about Obama's second Iraq invasion, but that's technically the third invasion of Iraq between Bush, and then Obama. But yeah, no. So I'm talking about. So I think it's actually as far back as like 2003, 2004, where
It could have been.
the Democrats kind of like really.
It could have been back that far, like behind the scenes. But what I'm saying, it was like in your face, and you got to see it.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Like that, I think that's when it became very obvious that was happening. It was around 2012.
Well, Bandit says 2016.
was
Hillary
before
Clinton
then.
surge. Yep.
Dude, 2016.
Donald
Trump
Rumsfeld.
Trump was
it was-
running in 2015 talking about how fucking being in Afghanistan was stupid and Hillary Clinton was fucking pro-war. So it happened before 2016 for sure.
No, it wasn't Rumsfeld. It was God. He was a black guy that I forget if he was Secretary of State or wasn't he a
Are
general?
you-
I want to say he's
Oh,
general.
no, are you talking yeah, because there was a general and then he was Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
He was gonna run for president, decided not
Yes.
to.
Yeah, that's the guy. I
God
can't-
damn it, what was his name?
Yeah, I know.
Colin Powell. There it is.
Colin Powell. That's it. That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking of. Yeah. So he was speaking at the UN and like
Oh, he bold face lied about the whole thing.
face like yeah.
That
Colin
was terrible.
Powell. Yes, sir. Yeah. So like he flat out knew he was lying. He spoke the lies. Like he knew it. He absolutely knew it. And if you read any of the antiwar.com books, from Scott Horton, like there's so many footnotes, like you can't deny it. It's just absolutely
Scott
can't.
Horton's fucking amazing.
He is amazing. Yeah. And he's
One of my
Uh,
favorite guys ever.
yeah, so like it's crazy to me that I don't know, the duopoly is real, but like it seems
Mhm.
like right now that the parties have completely flip-flopped. Right?
Oh
Whereas-
yeah, that happened a while
Whereas the
ago, but-
Republican Party is not completely anti-war, but is like kind of
Well,
like
so-
almost going in that direction.
There's this weird fucking split in the Republican Party of the boomer Republicans and the Trump,
Boomers need to stop voting. Boomers
like-
need to completely stop voting.
like you have this weird mesh. So you got boomer Republicans and you have like new age Republicans, and then you have like the MAGA kind of mesh to where like they both kind of mix into the MAGA. So like the MAGA is kind of the middle, and then you have boomers and new age. I think what you see out of JD Vance is probably like more the new age Republican, and he's more of a post-modernist or post-liberal type Republican. Like And that's what scares me about him. Like everybody's like, oh yeah, blah blah blah, and all the good things about him. But what I fear from him is he is somebody that I don't feel would be against making some sort of like, maybe not a dictatorship or monarchy type situation, but he understands the use of the federal government's power to eliminate the problems on the other side. And he might be right. It might be necessary to do that. But I don't like the idea of like somebody using and wielding that power and canceling the Constitution in order to achieve their means, because that sets precedence for the other side to do the same fucking thing.
Yeah,
That's-
of course. Yeah.
He's like, to me, if we're gonna have a civil war in the next 20 years, JD Vance is gonna be like the general of the right-leaning side of that civil war, because his post-liberal beliefs allow him to justify it. If you really look into him and his thoughts and his beliefs and some of his writings and how he actually like, and he's not wrong sometimes. Like some of it, I'm like, ooh, you took that a little too far.
Yeah.
But he does a good job justifying why it's necessary to cancel. Like the Constitution wasn't meant for today. And if you are like, the Constitution isn't this sacred document that it was 100 years ago. Times have changed. And so in order to make it sacred again, we're going to have to take some drastic measures to update it. Now, the left does the same thing, though. The left does the same
I
thing.
had this discussion with my brother. I'm like, listen, you know, we actually, you know, my brother, we came up for a wedding and everything. And so, you know, we do what normal brothers do. We got drunk, talked about politics. It's generally
Sure.
a good idea. Generally a good idea.
It's always a great idea.
But,
No
but,
fights at all, ever.
but yeah, not at all. Luckily enough, yeah, we hug at the end of the night, tell each other we love each other, and it was good. But it like this conversation happens like, well, if the Constitution is not right in this certain area, right, like this area, and then you change it by amendments, like that is the way that you this if you're going to claim that the document is living and breathing, then this is how it lives and breathes. You change it through the amendment process, and that's
And
how
it's
it
meant
was
to be
changed.
hard.
Yeah, it's meant to be hard because you don't want to change it all willy-nilly. Like you know, like this is, yeah, it's meant to be a difficult process. Now if you want to give the federal government more power than it has, then absolutely you need to go through the amendment process. Like I don't understand like anyone that would argue against that. Especially like it doesn't matter like if you agree with it now, like what about in 4 years when the people that you don't agree with take it over?
Bandit.
Yeah.
Some bitch.
All right, I gotta piss.
Meant
And I'm gonna grab another beer.
meant to be
But,
hard.
I'll be back in like 5 minutes. Bandit, throw out some questions for chicken. Like so, you know, I mean, while I'm
Yeah.
gone. And
There's plenty I can rant about.
oh yeah.
I'll jump back into the whole gun versus abortion thing. I know I was going on that rant a little bit earlier. I tried to like go through it really fast, but if I was a liberal that was pro-abortion, I would have to take the same stance as I do on gun rights. And with gun rights, in order for you to believe that everybody should like never lose any rights on guns, and including being able to own a tank or a nuclear weapon, like you have to take it to that extreme and be able to like cement that and defend that with knowing the negative consequences. As in any belief, you have to be able to like go, yes, this is the cost of me believing that. And I know that some people will die. And it's really hard to say that I know that school shootings could possibly happen. Now, can you like negate that and change that and like reform different things to help close to stop that from happening? That's where you have to fight and defend. But if you're going to have a belief in like gun rights and Second Amendment, you have to acknowledge that that's going to happen. That's just the natural price of believing in the Second Amendment is people are going to die unnecessarily. and in bad ways, and terrible things are going to happen. But that's no different than freedom of speech. People hear terrible things and say terrible things to each other that cause people to kill themselves, for example. There's terrible things that happen with illegal search and seizure. The government fucking kills people all the goddamn time breaking into their goddamn homes when they could have easily just interviewed them at an airport where it's totally secure with no weapons. Never happened, right? You can go through all, maybe not all amendments, but several different amendments and different laws. And like, you can believe in these things and understand that there's still bad things that are going to happen in the weird extremes, and you can't prevent all of it. And that's the same thing. If you like, I don't want abortions. However, if I were going to take that belief and I was going to steel man that, I would have to say, as a steel man argument for abortion, I would have to say that sometimes bad decisions are gonna be made. And unless you're able to like do that and be able to square that circle and say, yeah, okay, I don't think you should ever ban abortion because bad things happen and there may be a need for it. Then understand that's your position, and you have to understand that sometimes people are going to have abortions and lie about it, and you're going to have bad abortions, and that people are going to argue with it. Like, you have to take that position and understand that there's going to be murder. There's going to be bad situations that you did not intend on. Just like the Second Amendment, you're going to have bad killings and things that you didn't intend on. And so if I was a leftist protecting abortion, I would say, yeah, there's going to be some crazy bitches out there. But the overall idea, if I want to protect the body and sanctity of somebody's like personal health and well-being, then I have to understand that some people are going to abuse that. I don't think that's a hard position to take. And I don't think that's really hard to communicate to people a lot of times. Just like the gun thing. It sounds like shit to some people. Like when I say, yeah, I don't want anybody's guns ever taken away because somebody's going to take a gun and shoot kids. There's no difference in that than saying, well, okay, I'm a liberal now, and I don't think that we should have a nationwide ban on abortion. And I know that innocent kids are going to die. Like, you have to be okay with that and know that that's the cost of your agenda, is that negative consequences come with everything. But they won't do that. They won't do that. That's one thing I respect Charlie Kirk for. He will flat out fucking tell you people are going to die. That's real. It's going to happen. You have to take that kind of stance, and you have to be real about it and being able to go, yeah, it sucks. I get it. But there's 330 million people in this country. You can't fucking control it. At that level, at that scale, that's not fucking possible. But you can prosecute it, and you can adjudicate it, and you can deal with it when it happens. But at the same time, here's the other biggest problem with when it comes to abortion or gun rights or fucking whatever the big issues of the day are. It all comes back to culture. And when you're bringing in this massive, this massive amount of people that do not understand our culture, it's not going to get easier to fix these conversations and fix these problems. That's probably what scares me more, because I could probably go around and talk to my liberal fucking neighbors and liberal friends and get them to like that conversation right there. I think we could agree to where I can respect your view on abortion if you respect mine on 2A. I think we can come to some common ground and go, okay, like let's talk about it, and we might not agree, but we might kind of go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But when you have somebody from a totally different culture that doesn't speak your language, which is the most basic fundamental, you can call it racist all you want, but you have to speak the fucking language.
Yeah.
If you cannot communicate properly in a society where you are trying to culturally fucking meld, that is huge. That has to get fixed. And then like you can't have cheap labor taken away and being allowed to happen and totally diminish fucking work, and then have government fucking money coming in to take care of fucking immigrants that like it just creates hatred, it creates racism, it creates all of these things that Democrats say they don't want, but they're the ones fucking providing it. I just, oh my god, like it's a self fucking perpetual cycle of fucking hatred that's being created by these policies. It feels like it's on purpose, personally. But
What do they call it? The self-licking ice cream cone or something.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's meant to be hard. I'll go back to that comment.
It's meant to be hard. Oh man. Politicians don't deal in solutions, they deal in trade-offs. Well, they certainly don't deal in solutions because that would just run themselves out of a job. Like they don't want to do that, right? They're getting paid 6 figures. They don't want to turn that up.
We are in an age, and like this baffles me too. We're in the year 2024, and we have not changed how political like discourse acts in thousands of years. Like politicians lied in the Roman times and before. Like they were known to be like, some of them were more of the aristocrats and different things at different periods of times, and had different responsibilities, different powers. But at the end of the day, they were all people that would lie, cheat, and steal to get what they needed to keep power. I'm like, Brennan, you tell me if there's something you can think of, but there are very few, if any, countries that have had politicians that have lasted more than fucking 10 to 20 years that actually voted for the people and actually did what the people needed. Those countries don't exist. They will never exist because they get overtaken by because it's too idealistic. Here's the problem. The human psyche is too fucking crazy to deal with actual goodness and idealism and say, this is my utopia. They can talk about a utopia, but they never want a utopia, because when you have a utopia, what the fuck's the use for a politician? It's a self-preservation fucking mechanism that politicians have in this goddamn world to keep themselves in power, because they enjoy power, because, well, you know, fucking power's fucking tits, and I get a lot of money, and I get some bitches and some cool drugs.
Well, ultimately, I think it's easier to trade your safety and security with your freedom.
That's today. That's today.
Yeah, that's today. But I mean, I think that's where everyone lands. I mean, look at most of the governments today. Canada, France, Mexico, like any of them, right? Like,
can we buy Canada?
No, they're fucking so bad right now. Like,
parts
so
of it
bad.
are bad. Not all of it, but parts of it.
No, the prime minister, like Justin Trudeau, is a fucking piece of shit.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm
He
saying. Can we
is so
just
awful.
buy it?
Well, we could probably buy him. Like, he's
You know how
that
great the
well.
hunting would be? Like,
Oh god, the caribou up there are phenomenal.
moose, caribou. Like,
Oh yeah. I mean, caribou.
you know how
moose-
faster it'd be to get to Alaska if I could just like not have to drive into Washington and like try to drive up that way.
Yeah. But
Canada will pay us to take them, says Bandit.
yeah. That is a trade-off, right? He said politicians deal in trade-offs. That's a trade-off. Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Canada's awful, man. Justin Trudeau's a piece of shit. Like, he just straight up piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know much about their politics, but it sounds like they're going to have
it's
a
awesome.
little bit of a right-leaning government coming in, but we'll see. How it goes.
I don't think it's gonna be that.
Justin
way.
Trudeau was supposed to be a right-leaning government too.
Yeah. And then he banned the trucker protests. He like just annihilated the trucker protest. So, yeah. What a dick. So
Yeah. Anyway, I know it's much later for you than it is for me. So
yeah, and I got to get up in the morning and many beers deep. So this was fun. as always.
This is my first time jumping on a podcast in months, man.
I know.
It felt good. It felt good.
Yeah, it was great. And thanks for jumping on. And thanks for yeah, I got nothing. Yeah. No. Thanks for jumping on. And yeah, it was a blast.
Thanks for having me, brother. It was fun.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. We got to do it again soon.
Yep, we'll do it again soon.
All right.
Good night, folks. Appreciate
Thanks
you.
for
Love
listening.
you.
See ya.